7:01. Welcome, everyone. And we do have a quorum, so we're going to call the Board of Education meeting to order. First off, do I have any public comments?
Aaron Caraway, Wyndham Road. I only have two things I wanted to cover. The first one was about sort of what I touched on at the last meeting, and then we had a conversation during the town meeting afterward, and I just wanted to follow up on that. So it's specifically about FOI and the whole committee meetings, and preface it with, obviously I know you guys are elected, but really volunteer, and you volunteer a lot of your time, and there's a lot of commissions that do the same thing, volunteers. And so everyone kind of has extra priorities and everything, and everyone does their work a lot for the town, and you guys do it for the school and the town. But I wanted to point out that the reason I brought it up, so we've had 6 visits in the past 9 years from FOI, and in those, it's been every year since 2013. And the reason I brought that up as a caution was because when meetings, if anything could happen wrong when a meeting is held and anything could be contested, the threat there is that everything at that meeting could be voided. So all the work that you guys are already giving up time and all of that can just be wiped away and have to basically be redone. Decisions can be overturned, and the bigger, more important thing is that it supports, if the town had something like that, it supports ethics actions, and I know that's not the intent of it. So I just want to, the reason I was bringing it up was so that we can avoid all of those things. And just my last bit on that is that obviously I think it should have to go without saying, but it's not a personal thing or an individual thing for one commission. I've mentioned this to another commission. I think I mentioned to you as well, Amy. It's not just one. So there's no targeting there. And it basically just boils down to, again, conversations with FOI is that this is our town, and what we have outside of here is a good name. And that's all we have, because people don't usually take the time to come to meetings, like 22 people at our last town meeting. So I'd love to hold on to that good name, that goodwill that we have, and just foster that further. The second thing is about the upcoming budget, and specifically about MBR, because it's been bandied around a few times that we just have a solid, flat minimum budget, and you can never do anything to whatever you did here before. So I wanted to stress and request that that sort of be clarified, because as I'm currently understanding, our current limit is actually a maximum reduction of 1.5%, regardless of how much tuition changes. That's still maybe your tuition reduces by more than that. That's still your limit, specifically because we have the free lunch. We meet that free lunch threshold. And I would specifically reference Public Act 1599 and the corresponding House Bill 7019, if you need to reference those. And also point out, in the new budget, although it's not so great for our schools, the current budget that's been presented by the governor, the two pieces that a lot of people are favoring is the different handling of special education, which seems like it could benefit the towns that really struggle or have a high cost for that. And the thing that hasn't really been discussed so much in the news, a couple of stories covered it, is that the major proposal there is to wipe away MBR for everyone who's not Alliance. And that would be huge. So we wouldn't be discussing this MBR thing ever again, which would be very nice. So just keep an eye on that. And I understand, like Jeff said, things are going to drastically change in that budget. I hope the drastic change is going to be that the pension funding, but if we can do the MBR thing, that might be great for our size of the town. So, thank you.
Any other public comment right now?
Before you move on, I'd ask you to look in your folders. I have a request for you to add an agenda item to the agenda. The item to the agenda would be the approval of the board's 2017-18 estimate of expenditures.
I'll make a motion to move agenda item 11B.
Add.
Did I say add?
You said
Move. Add item 11B. Add item 11B. I'll second. All right, enjoy seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. So we will add 11. Thank you very much. Before we get to that. Thank you very much. And so next is the approval of the special meeting minutes for February 22nd. Do I have a motion for that? I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for, are we doing special meetings? Or you want both? The December? Sure. Sure. For the special meeting and the regular meeting, both on February 22nd. Okay, can I have a second? I'll second that. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. So, next, Dr. Conway, did you have any other correspondence that needs to be discussed at this time, or can we do our presentation from our
Presentation. We're quite delighted. We have 3 Brooklyn students with us today and Assistant Principal Raphael Calixto. And here's Assistant Principal Calixto. And the students, I have 3 chairs for you, so you don't have to stand up here if you feel comfortable doing that. We're very excited that you're here. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm one of the assistant principals at Ellis Tech. We just brought up a quick presentation on what we do for recruitment. We recruit in about 19 to 20 towns, middle schools. So we draw students from the quiet area as far as over east to Willimantic, Nashville, and also our students in obviously Brooklyn, Woodstock, and Compton, those kind of things. The first thing we're gonna do is just show you a 3-minute video, 3.5-minute recruitment video that pretty much highlights our school and our environment, what we had to offer at the school. So it's a lovely video that our students did last year.
While Anthony is starting this up, I'd like to introduce them
Sure.
as well, very quickly.
Anthony
So Anthony is our electronics technician, and that is the field he is in. He was also the Superintendent's Award winner last November. Again, Holloway High was very honored to have him back again. And Deidre Askitis, I apologize, Precision Machining Technology, a very, very valued commodity at this point. And William Matthias, and he's in carpentry. And so we're absolutely delighted that they're all from Brooklyn, and we're delighted that they've come here to share them. So I'll turn it back over to you, Anthony.
Is that a wood watch you have on? Did you make that?
No, my sister.
I'm just giving you an example of what we did last year to our coming 9th grade class. So I know the date is last year's 2016, but this is just an example of the folders. What we handed out to the freshmen for our orientation. Just gives you an idea of all the information that was out there.
I can cite because I am more of a hands-on person and I enjoyed the experience that we get with our trades.
Ellis Tech would offer me more education for the time spent in a public school.
I knew that I wanted to do something that was very hands-on. I wasn't exactly sure what trade I wanted, but I knew that if I gave it time, going through exploratory, going through each shop, seeing what each shop was all about, to find out what trade I wanted to do.
Exploratory program, there's a 2-day or 4-day, is when you go 2 days through each shop and basically, they give you the easy stuff on the 2-day. Once you decide what you want, you go to the 4-day and they give you more like experience hands-on work.
It's different because the shop isn't all in book learning. I've had opportunities where I never thought I would, like my shop that's gone to 4 countries and some other things that I didn't think Ellis Tech would provide. It did. It's a better fit than what other schools would be like for me. It lets me be myself as a student and explore what I want to do.
I am currently the president of the simulation club. The best part about being in the club is getting to know everyone on like a different level than shop or classes. I've had time to get to know people. Most of them are like some of my really close friends. I do volleyball in the fall, basketball in the winter, and softball in the spring. What got me into like sports was I thought it was like a better way to make friends and like just a bonding create with people. I remember doing cross country and that was like 3 miles, so it was like track plus nothing. So why not try it out? I think the feeling when you're at a meet and you're standing in, you're waiting for the gun to fire and it goes around you, that adrenaline really gets you going. I think the best part is honestly the friendships that you make. It just gets you more involved as a school kid. It makes you feel like you're at home.
If you want a trade, but you don't know exactly which one, you should go to Ellis just to try all the trades out. Academics, I'm sure it's fast, but teachers do definitely help you.
I love the teachers. All the teachers are just amazing here. Go for it. And there's so many options that you're bound to find something that you'll like. My experience has been completely positive. I would definitely recommend this to anyone who wants to get out there and feel great out of high school. It was everything that I expected. My favorite part of LSTech is the shops because we're not just sitting in a classroom and work. We're like learning about our trade. We're learning about what we love to do.
So that's basically the video, and it again was created and produced by Ellis Tech students. A couple of former students came back and helped them out with the drawing or with the building things of that. At this point, I'm gonna have the students talk a little bit about their experience. They're seniors and they've been there 4 years, so they probably know the school and the environment better than any adult in the building. The kids know it all. So, Anthony, won't you?
Once again, hi, I'm Anthony. I'm a senior in electronic technology. I came from Brooklyn. When Ellis Tech first came to Brooklyn about 7th grade, and 7th and 8th grade, I was really interested. They put on the power, the whole spiel that we do every year for the several schools, and I was really interested in it. And then I decided to fill out an application. And once I got in, I've always wanted to do electronics, and I went through the whole way to get my shop, and I ended up getting my shop. I've been in electronics for all 4 years, and I've done several things, and I absolutely love it. I'm really glad I decided to come here.
So Anthony, when you say getting your shop, what do you mean?
Oh,
Like getting a line?
So when you first get to Ellis Tech, you start with about a 3-week academic cycle to get comfy with the school, and then you start your exploratory process. There's a 2-day process, and a 4-day process. So you start your 2-day. You start with each shop, 2 days for each shop, and you go back to academics for a little bit, and then you go back and you choose 3 shops, which you'll explore for 4 days each. And then after that, you go back to academics for a little bit, and then you go to a night called shop selection night, where you and your parents, you go and you talk with the shop teachers that you decided that you wanted to work with, and you eventually choose your 3 shops, and the guidance department does a really good job with the kids to help get their number 1 picks, and we hope that they
Your turn, Will.
Yeah, I'm Will. I'm a senior in carpentry shop. I've always loved carpentry, and when the opportunity came at Brooklyn to come to Ellis, I just jumped right on it and filled an application out, which was particularly really helpful with that. And as soon as I got my acceptance letter, I was just jumping with joy. And I don't know, it's just, I don't know how to explain it. They teach you so much there. I've learned everything from building small boxes to going out on the job and building a house. A great experience.
So you always knew it was going to be carpentry.
Yeah, I've always loved carpentry. I was really glad I got my shop.
Hi, I'm Deidre Skidis I am Precision Machining Senior. When Ellis first came for the 8th grade for the the recruitment for everything to show what they had, my very interest was this block because I had no idea how they even could create such a thing because it's just like it's a mind guesser.
Can we see it?
Yeah. I also have a couple of
Did you make this particular one?
no, I'm going to make something similar where all the blocks will be designed.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, because I plan on making something similar because you start out with that's the one that so when going through the 2-day and the 4-day, this was my #1 pick.
So these start out as one solid chunk? Is that what it is? Okay.
It's an aluminum block. For that block specifically, I'd say it's 2x2 by block, all 2 inches. And you can start off with something bigger. We just did that size so you could handle it a lot easier. The one you have is a rim, and then that is a gear. And then this one here is a air compressed pneumatic engine where you put air compressed air in this hole, and then this whole thing will move. And then some parts the gear and then the rim are varied to 3 to 4 decimal places to the rim. It's the thousandths and tenths. But there are also some that are only on the tenths and then the thousandths, which are a little under the go. But it just amazed me when I got to Ellis how small numbers can get. Because in precision, it just goes very, very small. And I originally wanted to go there for carpentry because I built my own chicken coop at home, and I got into Ellis for that because I was always a hands-on child. I never wanted to be inside, and my mom knew it. So when I got in, I was like, "Ooh, carpentry!" Carpentry was in my top 3 in the 4-day, but the precision machining always skyrocketed because of that block right there. But Ellis Tech was it was amazing. All the teachers helped me out, even through college. Even going into college, they will help you out with everything. And even if it's fast-paced academics, it's not really that fast-paced because all the teachers are very into it. And then also going to Ellis Tech, it will help you for your future into what you want to do, and it'll help you figure out for your future careers and everything.
So you guys are all seniors. Congratulations, big day coming up, right?
2 months.
So what are your, can I ask, what are your plans when you guys graduate?
Yeah. I actually am going to go on WBL very soon, hopefully, and it's a work-based learning where you can go out on the job instead of shop, and you get paid while you do it, but you always come back for all the tests and everything, obviously. But I also plan to go to Three Rivers for also to try to get into a nursing career as well, just to get it off because I always wanted to be in the medical field. I have a lot of to-dos, busy woman, and then Ellis Tech is always very positive about where you want to go.
I'm planning on going to QVC to get business courses done because I now have the trade aspect of carpentry, and I'd like to learn the business side so that one day I could have my own business in the trade because in Ellis is really help me to move forward with that goal.
I'm actually still unsure of what I want to do because being in electronics, there's so much you can do when you get out. There's so much opportunity from being getting into computer science or software engineering, audio video, going into the military, for whether it's electrical work, IT, or whatever it may be. Electronics is very broad. Myself, I've gotten into audio video, video editing. The video that you guys watched a little bit ago, I helped produce. I've been working on several projects. We have a video competition coming up in about 2 weeks. I just finished a video promoting manufacturing in Northeastern Connecticut. And yeah, so I'm helping her out. And I'm very interested in like the entertainment industry. I'm working with live sound and live video and lighting and all of that. So I plan on trying to get into Foxwoods, the casino, or Mohegan, or hotels, or something to start. That's my way.
You've come a long way from my Girl Scout troop.
I know, sometimes I miss it.
One of the things, if you can connect with all of us, they have a lot of those at the technical education. I also worked in a public school setting, so it's not like a lot of times you go into the technical high school system and a lot of our instructors have been technical teachers forever, which is great. It's a great district to work for. But when you come out of the public school system and then you go into a technical high school and the way it works and the way the responsibilities are given to these students, it's amazing. So I got both perspectives coming in with the public school setting. The other thing that we do have that Deidre talked about is the work-based learning. We have about 38 placements right now in the senior class. So that's basically 38 students that instead of going into their shop cycle, they go right to work. They're either under a licensed contractor or a company. We also have had tours and people being hired by the casinos or ED, Engineering Dynamics, manufacturer of precision machining. It's a huge field right now. In the next 10 to 15 years, about 80% of the American precision machines workforce will be retired. So I know Anthony's working on the project, but it's something that we're really pushing for manufacturing. So we get calls, or the instructors get calls or emails from people that live in mom and pop manufacturing shops or bigger companies about interns and summer employment and things like that. The other thing that William mentioned was the military. To get into the military, you have to take the ASVAB exam. The ASVAB exam has a lot of mechanical background to it. There's a lot of hands-on thinking that you have to do when you answer those questions. You have to have that type of mind. A lot of our students, and this is what we've been told by the recruiters, whether they're the Navy, the Army, the Marines, the Air Force, our students usually test very well. And that translates to better jobs once they're in the service. And so instead of being the person that's digging the holes, per se, or fixing the fence, they're actually working on machinery. They're being the MPs, they're engineers on the field. So it's a great all-around education for our students. It's very enjoyable. I think what the video said, if they really are doing what they love to do. So you go to the shops and they got the right matches. It's amazing what a person can do when they're motivated. So it's nice to see. Any questions for myself or the students? Or
in terms of trade offerings, are there things on the horizon?
There's always talk about more additions and things like that. One thing I can tell you is that we do have an opening for an additional sustainable architectural instructor. Right now we have a one-person shop, but we have been able to hire another instructor. And that's also a great shop. We have a lot of interest in there. Last year there was a senior that won an Northeast architectural competition, and the prize was taking a couple of classes at Yale University. So they were in the architectural program for the summer. So there's always room to grow. We're always looking for growth to grow. One thing, our capacity is 790 students, so there is a limit how many bodies we can put in the building.
Are you full?
We are not full. Our population right now is about 644. 792 is our max in the shop side. But the classroom space is becoming an issue. But it's a good thing. We got a full building. I don't know if you guys think you're overcrowded.
I wish there was more people.
Our average class has about 18 students.
I'm on the bigger side. My classes have about 25 kids. But that's all right. I like
the overall average is about 18 to 22 students in the classroom. I think 25 is the high.
How often do kids not get a top choice that they're looking for?
I can't give you an exact number on that, but it happens every we can't accommodate everybody's first choice. Those shops are very competitive. Manufacturers want to them, carpenters want them. Actually, all three shops are there. So we can only take 18 students per class at first grade level. Therefore, if you have 194 students in the freshman class, some people are not going to get their first.
How do you decide?
It's through the exploratory program. They go through that first phase, which is 2 days cycle and they get evaluated on that phase. And then they get to select what they want to explore a little bit more in detail for a 4-day cycle. So they do that in their top 3. And after that, they're all evaluated and get a grade. You know, it's like the real world, the top dogs get their first choice.
It's always freshman year, they can ask.
Yeah, usually by December, the December break, you get some, you know, you get notified if you got your first or second. The great thing is there's other shops and, you know, if they get just that she wanted to be a carpenter and then became a manufacturer, not just doing that, is a lot they go in thinking that they're gonna go into a trade and they explore, they learn about themselves. Our guidance department does a great job with career exploring. So they do lessons on that and things like that, get to know what their person is.
Is there a lot of changing your mind from when, you know, you spend a year in manufacturing and?
Well, after October 1st of your sophomore year, it's kind of like it's called off the switch. There is, every shop has a waiting list. So if there's 18 students that selected, but you know they wanted to, let's say there's 20 students that wanted to get in there. Those 2 other students get put on a waiting list. So they might go into their second shop or third shop, and you know, let's say Anthony's a freshman, he had manufacturing technology, now he moves away. That's in the military, they move away to a different district or out of state. That person in the first waiting list slot will get contacted by the guidance department and say, hey, we know this was your first choice, are you still interested? And in that scenario, instructors put in extra time to get that.
And it's not hard to get caught up in the early years because they start off simple and with all the safety stuff first. So it's really simple to get up because even in an exploratory, they go through all the safety stuff in every shop first before you even go out on the floor. So it's all.
We tend to think that that's about the right spot. It's really difficult if it was to have a junior come in and learn manufacturing technology when they've been in culinary. It's just very difficult and added stress to that student.
Here's a question for you. You gotta go way back for this one. Back to 8th grade. How did you feel prepared coming out of Brooklyn Middle School to go into academically?
Academically, I think I could. I was iffy on if I could handle it. I was very excited because switching from middle school to high school, it's like you think it's a major drastic change, obviously, and you're going into a like halfway adulthood. But once you get there, I was actually very comfortable because you start off in academics, and all the teachers, even with the freshmen, and you have senior mentors. And I'm a senior mentor myself.
Yeah.
Anthony is too. And we actually help the freshmen, and we have our freshman classes, like we're set into homeroom with the freshmen, and we help them with their academics and where they have to go. They even come in early, and we help them through all the classes and everything. And and even the teachers are really nice and even help go through everything. And we always have an agenda for the cycle. Sometimes some things are a little due, like you have an essay and it's due the next week, but they will help you always get through it in that week and give you time to work on it at school as well as at home.
Mentors are very important to the freshmen. We draw from about 19 to 21 different schools and towns. So, you know, there might be, and we draw from smaller schools than Brooklyn.
Yeah.
You know, so there might be a student coming maybe from Hartford community, but their whole school's maybe like 80 kids, and in their class is only 28th graders. You know, so when they get there, they don't know what
Culture shock.
So we run a summer program before they come in. We invite the freshmen in for a scavenger hunt. They meet all the seniors, they're going to be senior mentors, and they get connected with them with homerooms and things like that.
You get very excited when they pick your shop and they know.
Because freshmen and seniors are on the same cycle in shop, and sophomores and juniors travel together.
I really appreciate you coming tonight. Great job. Very impressive. You guys are doing great things.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
We also have one last thing. We also have a restaurant on campus. Culinary does a great job, so it's open to the public. So if you want to come in, and we also have a hair salon and a barbershop. So anybody comes in, you can get your car fixed as well. Dump your car off, get your hair done, and get some lunch. You know? We actually have people that do that.
Well, really, all of that stuff? All right. You cut like somebody else's hair or?
Oh, yeah.
We even I've heard that freshmen even go next door. I forget what's the place next door, and can do appointments.
Oh,
next
we go
door.
across the street, there's
Oh, so
a
that's
CNC. And we do
we-
production work there. Every shop does production work. They go out and they build houses or electrical work, whatever. it
Or
is.
is information about the stuff that the public can come and do on the website?
Yeah.
There's something I'd like to point out very quick. Our shop specifically, we don't really have much to do out of site and out of campus because we're so broad, but we actually have a help desk support telephone line for in-school production. So I actually run that with another kid, and we get calls 4 or 5 times a day about your smart board or whatever it may be.
They're the IT people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Come over here and give us a
They're even helping my senior teacher with his computer because the updated version is not working.
What do you call that program? Work experience, right?
Work-based learning.
Work-based.
Yes.
We're gonna have to bring back home.
And you have a really fantastic recipe.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
I did neglect to put in your, it's on the agenda certainly, but to put the agenda brief in your packet for number 5. It is in your folder, however. So that to set aside bylaw 9311 so that you can use the consent agenda to move along. So it's a staple, it's 2 pages, and it says agenda item 5 at the top. Okay. I have one.
That's okay, that's okay. I don't-
The agenda.
Wait, no, we know how to do this one. We're experienced in this one. Ready? I would like, ask somebody for motions. Oh,
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, here we go. All right, so I'll make a motion to set aside bylaw 9311. Okay. Kelly makes motion to set aside bylaw 9311. Joan seconds, all in favor? Aye. Okay. So on the consent agenda, I got stuff to pull, so. All right. Can I ask a generic question about the policy? I don't think we've asked about this, because a lot of them up to this point have been like, well, like, they are what they are sort of things, and I think we're sort of getting into the, we're just starting to get into the ones,
Section.
yeah,
This is the
that
important
have,
section, yes.
that require discussion about parts of the policy. Do we pull them out at that point? Okay, yes. Even if it's not like a technical item, it's
Yes,
just any
yes,
clarification
any
question,
discussion,
we pull it out.
discussion, yeah.
Any sort of discussion we pull out. So, all right, so the first one that I need to pull out is BAR 5141.4. Next one that I need to pull out is H, which is 5144.1. And the next one I need to pull out is M, which is 5145.15. I also have 5145 if you want to go in order, which is J. Right. And then other, give me another note.
Nope, I have that 32.
The next one I would like to pull out is P611. Calendar, sorry. The next one is Q 6112. The next one is W 614131.
Oh, I have U and V, 6340 and 6141.
U and V, yep. Next one is Z 6141.8. And then my last one is BB 6142.10. Does anybody have any other ones that they would like to pull out of the consent agenda? Okay, so if I can have somebody make a motion to accept under consent agenda A, C, D, E, F, G, I, K, N, O, R, S, T, X, Y, A, A. Okay, Joe. Kelly, second. Kelly, all in favor? Okay. All right. Oh, wait. Is it 5.4, 1.4 was the first one to be? I actually should have accepted. I said it was accepted. Sorry. So on that one, my first question is on the bottom corner, it says page 5 of 11. On the second paragraph under school employee, it still has high school in the middle of that sentence. I know some places we have removed high school and some places we didn't, so I wasn't sure if.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That, the next question that I had is on page 9 of 11. And this just may be a typing thing. So on number 4, the last part of the sentence says, set forth in paragraph E above. Okay, and I'm like, did I miss E? Do I miss a page? But that
It is right
it is,
here.
but it's not,
Yeah,
but because then it's not bolded.
It's not bolded.
Okay.
F was not bolded either. That was
Okay.
just a typo.
Okay, so that's what I thought it was, but I just wanted to make sure that I missed
Yes.
the page someplace along the way. All right, so that's the only questions I had on that one. Did you have, is that one that you had? No, okay. So then the next one is. Yep, I have it. So my first question is on page 1 of 5, under the last paragraph, which is student. Yes. Yep. And then pre-K to 8, not 12. Okay. That would just change that. Okay. That was my question there. And then the next question I had is on page 3 of 5, under the required training heading. It says that in the second sentence, such training shall be phased in over a period of 3 years beginning the school year. Have we done that, or is it still in the process of phasing in?
That line should be gone.
That should be gone, okay.
Whole line should be
I just wasn't sure if we're still phasing. We're all phased.
Yeah, we're all phased in.
Everybody's all phased. Okay. Did you have another question?
No,
Or is that the
mine
same?
was a pre-K to 8.
Okay. And so Kelly, you had 5145? you have a question on that one?
Oh, just so in the past, everything in other policies have changed. Mental to intellectual, and several policies that have changed, so I didn't know if on page 1 to 6 and page 3 in intellectual impairment. Because, right here, because we've changed it in other policies. Page 1 to 6, right here. In the third paragraph, the first line, physical and mental impairment.
Good job. I saw the other one where I'm like, oh, look,
It was changed in the other
Yeah.
ones, yeah.
Is that the only one on that?
That was it, I
Okay.
couldn't find anything else.
So then, yeah. So we're going to M.
I have 514515, yeah.
Oh, I have one.
Mine's on the page before yours.
Okay, so you're on page 1?
Yep, page
Okay.
1, in the very first paragraph, we cross out the definition of what an eligible student is or former student. An eligible student is a student or former student who's reached 18, blah, blah, blah. But then but we left reference to it further down in the policy under,
No, yes, we did.
oh, right above it. We left in the part that, without the consent of parent or legal guardian of the student or by the student who has attained status as an eligible student. But then we crossed out the definition of it. Just
Yeah.
to take up the
You
definition.
can leave it if you wish, but.
No, I
it's
just
the
was-
definition of what an eligible student is. So it just means someone who's reached the age of maturity.
I just was wondering if the other part should be taken out because we took out the definition, like it doesn't
No,
apply
because
because we
our
only have
former
18.
students or our high school students, if they're 18 or adults, can come in
Okay.
and get their own records.
That was my only question
Former
on
students.
that page.
And my question on page 2 is under, right above the legal reference, it says, no, the district may adopt, and then see version number 2, all the all this
Yes.
stuff. That should all be done, all the years down. Okay. That's what I was thinking. It was just- All right, so that takes care of that.
I did not.
On page 1 of 2.
So looking, 1 of 2.
Oh,
6111.
P.
6111.
I was confused about the board establishing a graduation date, because I feel like we removed.
Because we do have an eighth grade graduation.
We do call it graduation.
We do.
And so that's why I was afraid to suggest removing that.
Yeah.
Okay,
We took reference to high school out.
okay,
It's not high school graduation, but my understanding is we don't call it the promotion ceremony. We call it graduation.
okay.
So
I still know
I
each
left it
teacher-
in for
okay, okay.
the town, that that's the language the town is used to.
Okay.
But, so, and truly, the kids can't leave until they've been here at least 180 days.
Okay.
So,
Well, I was thinking the graduation part, because I know that we changed the language in another place, so that I was just wondering if that, if I was saying something, I'm like, I thought that grade was.
well, it should be promotion. I haven't seen it as promotion in most places. Have you?
No, no.
Graduation.
Right. That's-
Okay, I just,
Is that what you- that's what you call it?
And we do schedule graduation weekend, maybe that's in school.
Right.
okay, okay. It was just the whole terminology.
Yeah.
Some of it, we,
Mr. Bell and I hesitated over that as well.
Okay, we did.
Had a little
Okay.
conversation,
Okay.
so, oh, but you-
Fun.
all right, so 6112. No, it was already. On page 1 of 2, under kindergarten.
Oh, yeah.
I actually
The-
thought about
in-
this too. The reason why I questioned it is just a clarification, because we have full day kindergarten. it says 450 hours here, not the 900 hours that it says above, but is that because it's not required by
It's not
state?
required
by law.
So
Okay.
if you put it in your policy, which you certainly can do, then you have to change the policy in order to reduce the number of hours if you had to go back from all that pay. Not that that's what you want to do, but if we got $2 million and we had to go back, then you have to change the policy. We can always do more than the policy allows, but we can do
Oh,
less.
Okay.
I read it a bunch of times thinking the exact same thing.
Okay,
and
that's what,
that
I
was
thought, so
the-
I thought it's just because it wasn't a state mandated thing. Okay, so that gets me through 12. So the next one is 40. And number 2 is,
this, I have to refer to the two policies together for this one, 6140 and 6141. In 6140, on page 1, the paragraph that's right above CS 6121 non-discrimination instruction, this paragraph, the sentence that is crossed out is the opposite sentence in 6141.
That's correct.
Is it supposed to be that way?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That was our big, Mrs. Travell, do you remember that? Remember
Yes,
that?
I remember
Our
that.
big discussion that we had,
I do.
going back and forth and, that was.
So in one, it says that we have the responsibility for establishing and approving. And the other one, it says we have the responsibility and authority for the curriculum.
Yeah, those are two
So what's
different
that?
policies. One is design development.
Yeah, and the other one's just curriculum.
One is curriculum. So in the case of design and development,
Yep.
that responsibility is there. But in the case of instruction, it is not.
So we're designing, or we're in charge of, the board is in charge of the design, but the teachers would be.
Well, in both of them, it says that teachers teach within the approved curriculum. I was confused because one, I don't know, just the way they work, but if that's intended, then I'm all
It is
good with it.
intended because one's design and development, one's instruction.
That was it. I read it back and read both of them a whole bunch of times.
Yeah, I know, it seemed crazy to me too, in one discussion.
As long as it's supposed to be that way and it makes sense for everybody.
Yeah.
All right, so.
I have it too. I have a question on there.
Go ahead, bilingual.
My bilingual is on the first page, first paragraph. What is within Nutmeg County?
Nutmeg is the fake
The big district.
or that district.
A fake district?
When he's on, that, like, in your
Oh,
keywords and stuff, it's
oh,
the Nutmeg
oh,
district.
oh,
You know, the Nutmeg district that's such and such and FY violations, so
Gotcha.
they, it's their fake district.
So it's just supposed to be changed to
It's
Brooklyn?
been like that since 2008. Policy passed.
They use
calling
it
us
as their
nutmeg.
example.
I
So
kept
it's
reading it,
Cave
trying to
identified.
figure out what it was.
Yeah,
That was my
if
only thing in that
If
one.
you
was
look
Nutmeg.
in the Cave newsletter that comes out monthly, there's always a Nutmeg Board of Education story
Right.
that is intended to be, you know, here's a situation that happened. They glean it from one of us, but
Oh,
they
okay.
can't
I
refer
never
to us
really
for
thought of the
privacy
Nutmeg
issues.
part, I guess.
Right,
But when I read it in here, I was
from the Nutmeg state.
okay, so that just has to go to Brooklyn, I assume?
Anything else on that?
No, that was my only confusing. What's that?
I read these for hours and hours and hours. I mean, my
We
children
feel
stay
your
away. I know. That's why I told my kids I'd see them Friday. All right, so 6141.8.
61. Oh, yeah. No, I'm sorry. Yes, I do have one.
In the first paragraph, it says K through 12, so it should say 3 through 3.
That's what I had to. Same thing. I think I did.
61, 42, 107.
Yeah.
Alphabet.
Are you still on 6141A?
Yeah.
Because on this page.
Which one?
It refers to junior high school and doesn't know high school.
6141.
Where, in bilingual?
Which one are you?
Yes, on the right.
bilingual.
No, I'm sorry, no, it's under quick.
Oh, I only have those two questions.
But it just, it's on page one, under general.
Oh, but that part's going away.
Yeah, we're getting rid of that. This
That's
is
a
the
whole
old
that's going
policy. We're replacing it with Kate. So Kate follows it. Yeah, so. That's kind of why. It's junior. Yeah.
Alright, so did you have? Oh, this one, I didn't have like a mistake in it, but I would like to talk more about there's a very tiny paragraph in there about using recess as a punishment or instructional makeup. And I think that's an important topic. I believe it's been discussed in PAC and PTO and everywhere else. And I feel like it needs to be reviewed a little bit further.
We removed it from every other policy,
This part of it,
right?
Yes.
As the
The ones that
punishment,
we're doing,
yes.
right.
Yes, it will not be.
It can't
Recess
be used as a
will
law.
not be.
well, right, it's a law.
It's a law.
It's unfortunately, it's still happening.
Where is it?
I'm sorry, 3.3. Page 3.3, the very first paragraph, it's very short. That a student's participation in entire time devoted to physical exercise in the regular school days in the form of discipline or punishment, nor should they cancel for instructional makeup time. I don't know, I feel like if that is happening.
Okay, well then those parents should be floating it.
Okay.
If a parent has a child that comes home and says, I was punished today and couldn't go out for recess, they pick up the phone and call the principal, right?
I just felt like it's sort of a big thing that's going on.
It
It's
should
a
not
very
be
tiny
Yeah.
section in the policy.
No, this is the policy as it comes out of the gate
Right.
for all Connecticut schools.
Yes.
Yeah, so if that's happening,
Or silly things like walking.
yeah, that, you know what the policy says, so make them call. Load that up.
I've got a couple just certain things. Should it be any student in pre-K?
Yes. Oh, yeah, I did write that
So we
last
do
year.
have, we
the
do
last
have
one.
recess and pre-K.
Okay.
When we got to the recess policy.
When it's warm enough, because we had a discussion in the car that
Yes.
it's not warm enough for pre-K, but warm enough for dinner. I'm gonna do the last paragraph. I'm a little bit confused with all the regulations.
Whether it's annual or
No.
regular, I think.
I'm still on page 3.3.
I know, but
but-
on regular, it's
Are we
just
supposed
say
to have brackets or
No.
not brackets, or, and then should be A, not M, regulars? Okay. I was just starting to, this was the last one, so I started to confuse myself, I'm like, what am I reading now? Alright, so we're all good with all of the corrections, amendments, clarifications, as done?
Good eye.
Well, you guys,
Good eye.
stuff before we do. All right, so I would like to entertain a motion to approve policies B, H, J, M, P, Q, U, V, W, Z, B, B, as clarified or amended.
Go ahead, John. I'll second you.
Kelly,
Do all of them.
all in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Too late. Okay. So, got that. Got that.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, there's more. Can we have an April break?
No, dream on.
You got days off. What do you think you're gonna be doing on your days off?
Right.
All right. Not reading policies. I actually read them. Okay. All right, so administrative reports. Dr. Conway, you're
I
up.
think we actually have so many reports tonight that I was going to do the middle school and elementary school media data, but we'll do that when we get to next generation. Is that all right? Or do you want to do them now? It's up to you.
Whatever you think is easiest and done.
Why don't we just
Okay.
keep going? We've got some, building reports, but. The next is, we have Board of Education.
No public comments next. Oh, okay. So we're skipping all administrative reports? Doesn't that-
Right, they give you information, they put it in information.
Okay.
Anything that is back there.
Okay, but that's, isn't usually administrative when we do the budget, that when we do the cherry pick?
I'm sorry. Sherry's here for us.
I was like, did I miss? I'm sorry, Sherry.
We're all.
I was just waiting my turn, you know?
Thank you, Mrs. Holmes.
Okay.
Okay, in your packets, you should have a copy of the output summary, for Brooklyn schools, the month of February.
Is it the one you got
It's
tonight?
sort of like in the end.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
It's right behind Brooklyn sixth grade invention convention.
Oh. Okay, this is the month that I did make the journal entries for, the excess costs that we received. And I will call your attention to the two accounts that I, journalized those amounts to. Will be, in the section where it says services. If you follow it up a little bit, it says tuition, special ed private, tuition special ed in-state LEA. Those were two accounts, 55,630 and 55,640, where I made the journal entry for the excess cost amount. The total of the excess cost amount, first payment that we received in February is $295,408. Right now, I'm preparing a spreadsheet of the estimate of what we expect to receive today. So I should have that at one of your keep in mind, it's only an estimate and things are not set in stone, sort of that.
But these amounts have already been received.
This month has already been received, yes. I also made some
Can't
other.
take it back, right?
No.
Oh, wow. Don't even suggest that.
Yeah, right.
Get out there, come on.
I made some other adjustments to accounts, in insurance, health and dental. There was $2,500 that came back to us in the refund. The supply account had a refund of, in the technology related, section, had a refund of $690. And we filled out some tuition to area school districts. One payment came back to us already, $3,121.58. So those adjustments have been made in this month, February. All grants have been, the grant journal entries have been made. So the money from the grants have been spent. And the regular budget has been properly reduced in the expenditure items. I think at this point, the accounts that are really a concern have been concerned all along. And we're basically keeping a close watch on supplies accounts in particular, and making sure that before we approve anything, it gets approved by the superintendent. Let's see what other areas. We're watching gasoline and diesel fuel also, and fuel oil, to make sure that they come in as anticipated. Dues and fees, will continue to monitor that as things come in. And course, tuition. Monitoring that, hoping for the best concession of tuition. Certainly, yes, the excess cost that comes in there. That's at least get what we're supposed to get. See what happens.
I have a question, on transportation athletics. We budgeted 25,000. All sports are done. Have we been billed for fall travel for athletics? That's it? 500. Is there more spring travel?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not what,
Actually, that's good. It is over.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that we should have done there.
There are three spring sports present. There are three spring sports. So three different teams, two of these, two in the fall, one, two in the
So fall, there's 2, 3 for
fall.
spring?
So fall is 3, spring is 3, winter is 2.
So fall and winter maybe aren't here yet?
We have covered what we have so far. That's I can check and see
Just curious.
if it was possibly charged to regular.
That's what I'm wondering.
Always a possibility.
That's what I'm wondering.
Just
So
they send it all
on one bill.
Let me, yeah, because it's hard to
Yeah.
decipher.
And it was all the same.
So let me double check that, and I certainly will make the adjustment.
No, it
next
was
month.
not. I believe that it based on mileage.
Right.
Where previously it had been per trip, but when we negotiated the new transportation agreement.
No, the old one was miles and then by hours.
Yeah, that needs to be looked at, because it was new language, I know.
It was.
And the
Yeah, I'm just
transportation
gonna take a look at the
contract,
billing and how they're
yeah.
doing it, so.
Yeah, make sure.
To make
that's
sure.
our
Because it seemed
contract.
like hours made more sense than miles.
Right.
Then it changed it
We
to
did
hours.
hours.
But I
It
know
was
the
miles,
hourly
but
rate
hours.
does match, because I have reviewed those invoices.
Okay, good.
And that's right on target with the contract. What I don't know is if, past, they're billing it really on the bill as far as athletics go, or whatever, you know, they're dealing with.
Right.
And if that's the case, I can just reclassify it.
It should jump out because it's a different method of billing.
It should, right?
Yeah.
I'll just double check that. I'm not the one that processes the data, so I can certainly take a look
So
at
we
that.
should be thinking that at this point in time, that at least half of the sport, well, so at least half. Because-
Yeah.
Because if it's 3 sports in the fall, three sports in the spring. Yeah, the winter, so at least half of that should be gone. So if we budgeted for 25,000, then it should be more than that.
I know, Dr. Conway is working with, John Pitcher. From MJ on
Do we have any other questions for Sherry on the budget lines? That we saw?
I'd just like to make a comment, it looks as though, you know, there are many items where you don't have a complete estimate of what the expenditures for the year will be. We're floating here with something just under $500,000, apparent surplus. Bills come in. Because the town's uncommitted reserve is so low, if we get hit with any sort of payment for teacher pensions, as much of that as possible, we'd like to have come from the town's uncommitted reserve. So if you could begin to make some estimates of how much of the roughly $500,000 you're perhaps not going to need, it would be really helpful for us to know what that is. So I guess what I'm asking is that you make a sort of a monthly estimate of how much you think is going to be returned.
Yes, April is the month that we usually do that. Take a look at all the bills and we go through, cost everything out to see the light
That's
and
great. If we had a even better estimate in April, rolling estimate, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So.
No pressure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment? All right, committee reports. I did not attend the board finance meeting last week because I was at Keep Training with Joan. So, and Mr. Otto has been kind enough to keep us in a loop of all of the wonderful things that discussions have been going on in budget. Anything else, Jeff, that we would want to hear from last week?
This is bad news here. I don't want to give any more bad news.
Okay. Anybody else with
I'll let you do Woodstock, I'll do these comments.
Woodstock, we had our board of trustees meeting last night. We officially approved the budget, so the tuition figure that we all were given is exactly what it is officially.
13,676, which is 2.48%.
That's pretty much the bulk of the meeting we talked about. But there was a lot of superintendent's awards yesterday.
Five head of school, not head master.
Sorry, yes, head of school awards. Not superintendent, right, head of school awards.
Or head of school.
And they're over in China right now. Obviously, in China right now, recruiting for new kids in the camp. That's pretty much it. And I missed finance because we were at one of the superintendents. No, one of the Monday superintendent's meetings, but it was just to go over the budget.
EastCon and CAVE, pretty much the same theme. We had Patrice McCarthy from CAVE come to our EastCon monthly meeting, and Patrice more or less went through the laundry list of what's before the legislature now in terms of public education. And it's the same thing, you're reading about hopefully, and you're seeing in the advocacy updates that CAVE emails to us constantly. It's the same hot issues. ECS, as AJ talked about, and the teacher retirement system and pushing back on that. The 33% was the initial proposal that they were, the governor's proposal that they're trying to push back on towns to pick up that piece. And then the most recent proposal was Dr. Conway mentioned being 5%. I think that the feeling is if there's anything that infiltrates being an expense at the local level in terms of TRS, that we're going to end up picking up more and more and more, and eventually probably all of it. And the biggest thing that we can do is just as advocates and constituents is keep pushing back on our state representatives first, state senators if you can as well, and explain to them that if we were to take that on in our budget, what it would mean to us. So when I spent the day on the Hill, I was just kind of chasing everybody around with that one-page position paper, that talked about their classroom sizes with goals 25 to 29, we forced playoff teachers, and we don't, have anything fat and happy here. We don't start Spanish in 3rd grade, and we're not doing it. We don't have math interventionists in our middle school, and that any cuts that we need to make would be painful. The difficulty is, of course, with all the districts in the state of Connecticut, Brooklyn's very small, and much of the noise comes from the larger cities, Bridgeport. So the legislators came in, and they all talked badly about the governor's proposal, regardless of their political affiliation, as Jeff mentioned earlier, and just said, it's a wait and see game. But any opportunity that's there to write, to email, Pat Boyd is very visible as our state rep and around, and wants to hear from us. So please just keep expressing. There's lots of discussion about things like the Student Data Privacy Act, which says you can't even use apps. So free apps that teachers use in classrooms can't be accessed anymore. The thought was, what do? Do you go to Google and say, hey, Google, in Connecticut, we have the Student Data Privacy Act. We need to change the language. And, is Google going to say, I'm going to do that for you? Connecticut, it's not going to happen. So really what you've heard about on Day on the Hill for, those 4 or 5 hours is just constituents and, different people from different districts, whether it was board heads, superintendents, talking about what it means to their district if these things happen. There's a bill before the legislature that says that school bus drivers will be using EpiPens on buses for kids that need them. And there was a person who stood up, he was a Board of Ed member, and he said, I'm a volunteer EMT, and as a volunteer EMT, I'm not allowed to administer an EpiPen or Narcan for heroin overdoses because it's too complicated. And so as a certified EMT, I can't do that. And your bill proposal is that school bus drivers are going to be administering EpiPens. So that's what they need to hear, you know, those types of things. So that day wasn't about hearings. Unfortunately, there's been 2 hearings so far. There's 1 more scheduled. And again, the hearings, you sit there for 12 hours to get your 3 minutes of fame. So if you don't have those 12 hours to sit at the Capitol and do all of that, the best thing to do is email. And they really say, you know, every time you talk to one of them, you know, we would love to get from every board member in Brooklyn, you know, an email about the same thing. Tell us why TRS is bad at the local level. Tell us what it does to you. So I've sent that position paper, hand delivered it, emailed it, but if all of you could do it too, that would be great. So I could talk about this forever, but I won't. I'm done. No.
Any other reports from other committees?
I have just a quick report from the high school. Social sort of emailed me the second quarter honor roll stats. So this was around. We had pretty good representation again for the second quarter. 33 students, 13 students overall from grade 9 to 12 on the honor roll. Number of high honors and so good representation. I'll ask the same question about the percentage.
And we can maybe start second.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
The juniors took it in 9 and the rest of them in 8 each.
Under old business.
Report card update. We had provided the board with a timeline, which I provided you again. And I believe Mr. Weaver is going to be presenting this evening. Is that correct?
We're gonna do it together.
Together.
But Mr. Weaver is gonna do it, and I'll be Vanna. Hi, Vanna. It's the whole packet of information which one you'll need in the next. And you don't you take.
How's our paper budget? No.
I know, right? You know, free stuff from Staples.
I wish I could recycle it back to you somehow.
Very little.
Okay, what you're looking at in the, are samples of the K-4 report cards. These are from Google Docs, so this is not the final formatting of this. They have been submitted to Jeff Kelleher, who's working with Rediker, and they're going to be put into their system, so they won't look exactly like this. It'll be a much neater presentation. The rubric will not be on every page; it'll just be on the first page, and the attendance will be underneath the school year, so be cleaned up. We have decided to go with EMPN. E is exceeding grade level standards. M is meeting grade level. P progressing towards grade level, and N is not yet making sufficient progress. And NI would be items that aren't introduced at this time. For example, on the 4th grade report card, some of the math, when you get into fractions or geometry, may not be introduced in the first marking period, but they might in the second. So we looked at a few districts and how they formatted their standards-based report card, and we decided that we kind of like the 2-column layout, so we could get it on. Some were quite lengthy. Some were 3 or 4 pages long. We wanted to kind of get it down to 2 pages. We did add in some science and social studies standards because the new frameworks from that are as well. And so we have done the grades K through 4 for the new standards report card. And after that, we've put in a couple of examples of rubrics. So each grade level has made rubrics for each standard. And they're not quite finished yet, but grade 2, they have here, we've included the rubric that they developed for the math and the language arts. So then we go through each standard, and the rubric would give an example of what it means to be exceeding grade level for that standard.
Does this go with the parents?
Yeah, this will be shared with parents, yes.
And on our website. Got one paper copy of the fall conference, and then certainly request another one, but that one paper copy, and then it is uploaded on the website.
And then they can refer.
And we also plan to, we've looked at the schedule a little bit. We do plan to host some sort of event for parents to come in and have to look at them and have them be explained. We had talked about doing it initially, we talked about doing it at the end of this year. We are a little behind schedule with the rubrics. You know, the teachers are working diligently on them, but it's now about time. We've had our last professional development day, so now it's going to be about getting people time to finish those. The teams are working. I know the first grade and kindergarten worked diligently on the 10th on those, but we're actually thinking about, rather than having parents have a training on them now, waiting until the fall so that it's fresh when they get their report cards, sort of connecting it to that. Because certainly we could tell them now, and then it would just be like, what? But we will be presenting these. We also have, during this process, we worked with our parent advisory committee. We presented them with information. They came back. We gave them different samples of other report cards. So I think you guys remember the multiple pages that we had, and it wasn't in a format. So we did give them multiple districts, even some where if a student moved in with a report card, I deleted all the personal information and said, here's another sample of a school's. And they were able to tell us what they liked, what they didn't like. I know that most people, the big issue was the big empty boxes. You know, so you had a huge box for science or social studies that it would just say effort. And, you know, Mr. Weaver and I felt strongly that with new standards, the new social studies frameworks have been in place now for a couple of years. Science frameworks are right there, right behind them, ready to go. And we did feel that we needed more specific information rather than just effort in those two subject areas.
When this was first presented to us in the fall, there was an issue regarding infrastructure or something related to, and maybe you already touched on that, Mr. Whittle, when you talked about the Google
Redditor.
Yeah, Redditor, is that, that's all been resolved? Okay.
Yeah, they have to shut down this. This is why a lot of that work will be done in the summertime, because if you have to shut down
Our student information system.
you get all the the names and for all the students, so that it'll be ready to go, so that teachers can get on. All the names will be on there. They want to input that.
There's two components to what we've submitted requisitions for. The components, one is to just build this, to take their system and build this document and use, get it all tied into our system, our Administrative Plus system. The other piece of that is separating us from the middle school, because we are going to 3 terms and the middle school's on 4 terms, and up until this point we're considered one school. So the system was the same, and the other financial component to it is having to now split the schools so that we can be on a 3-term cycle versus a 3 report card cycle versus a 4, and splitting that up, because otherwise, so there's different things that had to happen that Jeff has got the quotes and coordinated with the company. And so right now that Jeff has been given the templates, they're going to work on that. And then when they when they have to split the schools, that's when it will shut down the information system for
a week or two. I think it was 2 weeks that we talked about.
So in your experiences, talking with other districts that have rolled this out, were these some of the same challenges where on a 4 and 3?
Either that or it's, most didn't have one system. Most school districts don't have one system. So you have, you could have your middle school on 6 semesters plus your high school on 4 and your elementary schools on 3. So they weren't separate. They were, for us, because it's always been just the Brooklyn school, it's combined. But if you go to other districts where they have multiple schools that aren't even on the same campus, they're not all connected that way. And this is just the way that Redeker, Admin Plus, and Gradebook Plus has to communicate with our systems.
Thank you. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, that's pretty much where we are right now, is just finishing up the formatting will be completed. We should be on track to roll this out next year. And grade levels just have to finish their individual rubric for grade level. And we expect that to be done before the end.
The second grade one is finished.
That's just for the math.
Math and language arts.
Oh, it is? She did give you that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Math and language arts.
But this is complete for that particular.
It's complete for the grade level, and it's still a draft form though, because we haven't gone through and edited it and made sure that everything was consistent. The grade level, each of the grade levels have one person who's sort of taken on the leadership role in that. But we just also want to sit with the teams. We also want to sit with our PAC committee when they're all finalized, and like we'll do the rubrics or the templates. We'll do at this month's meeting, and then hopefully the rubrics will be ready to go before the end of the school year, where we can at least present it to that group, finalize all of them, and then hopefully we'll be able.
They're going to be like one format for the entire
Yes,
school.
that's the other issue.
I see that they're like works in progress, but
And that's because different people have worked on them to this point, but eventually we want them in one standard.
So if you're getting it in kindergarten for the first time, first grade it will be the same.
It'll look the same.
Other than the content.
The content would be. And in some of the cases, kindergarten especially, kindergarten's a little bit, because there's so many rote skills that are assessed in kindergarten, it's much more specific and measurable. So you can say that by December, you're gonna know, the exceeds means 50 cycles. But in other grades, when you're talking about concepts, it's really gonna be more about, do they know it most of the time, some of the time, never, so it will change based on the grade level and what the content, the standard actually is.
Do the students know this is coming?
Do they care?
Well,
I'm not sure they know. I question, Joe.
Without their little yellow
Because
envelope,
if I
and
showed
say
this
something
to
totally different.
back to Murphy, they wouldn't know any different from their report card that they have now.
Except the boxes are filled in more.
I would think would know.
Come on, Kelly, their boxes are filled in more.
This is true. They do like it. They will
They
not
doodle
miss
it on,
checks, pluses, minuses, whether something is an E or an O or a So yes,
So
they will
we-
notice that part.
We would let the students know at the beginning of next year that would be, some of the kids, like I said, some of them won't care,
Right.
just because they're like a report card, they're so young. But the older ones will certainly be like, oh, this is different. But we do feel that it's gonna be about bringing in the families and going through it. And that first time you go through it, it's a lot to take in. And the teachers will also be, the first time they grade using it will be different, and then they'll just get, it'll become.
There is a
easy.
learning curve. It does take a little while to get used to. In my experience, it takes about a year. So experience with it for the staff. Very familiar with it.
And do we plan on having multiple kind of training sessions just so that we're making sure that we're capturing?
So we can get to everyone. We probably would break them up grade-wise, maybe, K1, 2, we'll look at that and see what makes the most sense.
It's too bad we can't just put like website with a tutorial, about it of some sort that parents
We,
can access on their own.
Call Ellis.
That is a great idea. Where's Or maybe you have some budding technology experts in the 8th grade or something.
Right.
And it would be great. That's a great idea. And I think that we could certainly, even our kids, I think some of our 4th graders could. I might pass that idea along to one of our teachers who's technologically savvy. And maybe he would have the students do it, which would kind of be really great to have kids say, this is what it means to, in this standard if you exceed.
Thanks for all the hard work. Sticking with it.
But it's coming along. It's definitely something that just, we had to sort of refine some of the wording and we feel good about what's there now. I'll be back for the rest of your present. Yeah, all of it's in there. My dad is in there.
Okay, so 11B was the added agenda item to approve the Board of Education 2017-18 estimate of expenditures.
So now I get to make the motion.
Yes, now you make a motion to approve the budget as presented. Yes, during our budget workshop.
Now you can.
Second. Now Joan seconds it. Any questions, comments, or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So that's good. All right. So, now I have zero is here. All right, so new business, we've got new policies, first reading.
This is your first reading. You can see there are 6 items, 4 policies, 2 administrative regulations. Some of them were older but had never been adopted, so they were in the policy book. We updated those, and then certainly adoption date, so it has to be seen as a brand new policy. Policy, the objectives of the instructional program. Another one, separation of church and state. We did not have that one. And then the migrant students policy is a mandated policy that we need to have. So this is just the first reading, so if you have questions now, perhaps we can answer, but otherwise if you have questions you want to email, I can address them at the next meeting.
And would you like to read the letters?
I would ask, we have 2 teachers who have announced their retirement. Glenn Lessig, who teaches computer literacy at the middle school, and he was in business for many years before he became a teacher. So he brought quite a background to us. And Patricia Ryan as well. She actually started as gifted and talented, did that for several years before becoming a teacher. So you can read their little bios here that I wrote, or we can read their letters too. They're very gracious. They work very much. They're wonderful.
Read the letters.
Read the letters. That'd be great. All right, this is from Mr. Lessig. I have had the exceptional experience of teaching and working for the Brooklyn schools for the past 20 plus years. It is bittersweet that I confirm today that I will resign from my teaching position and technology support positions. He's one of our 2 tech people. My last day will be at the end of the 2016-17 school year. Please know that I am endeavoring to make the transition of the technology support position as smooth as possible. As you plan for next year, know that if I'm needed, I'm interested in exploring the potential of supporting Brooklyn's technology needs on a part-time basis. Please feel free to contact me. So I'm very delighted that he's still willing to be one of our family and come to our need, our aid if we should need him. So he is retiring, not resigning. That's correct. Yes. And Patricia Ryan indicates, I would like you to know that I plan to retire effective June 30, 2017. My hope is that your planning will become easier, so we certainly appreciate that because we're able to make adjustments in our budget for a very veteran teacher to a newer teacher. This decision was not reached without a great deal of thought. Brooklyn schools have treated me very well, especially through some illness. The board, administration, and staff, all staff, she means, made times for her much easier. My years with the gifted program and then the third grade have been both rewarding and challenging. With the usual ups and downs that go with the job. It's been a pleasure to work with colleagues who have shared ideas and materials, been extremely helpful, and provided a healthy dose of humor when needed. I will certainly miss the children and the staff. It's hard to imagine moving forward next year without the end of summer excitement of new ideas for making the year better than the one before. I always feel that teachers start the new year feeling sure that they will conquer the world. I will have to find new challenges and goals. I appreciate the guidance you have given the elementary school staff and our new administrators. You have helped our school move forward to meet expectations of both the community and the state. This has been a great year, and I'm fortunate to hold my career and work on my positive notes.
Definitely accept their retirements with regrets, but many thanks for the many years with the both of them for the devotion that they've given to us. And I'm sure we'll be calling Glenn. Nobody's calling.
It's not necessary that you take a formal vote, so but it's up to you. So this is welcome.
They don't need our permission.
Yeah.
Although I already told the
I think
teachers
they're gonna do it
I
anyway.
think they
do have some words for us.
I did tell Mrs. Sweet that it was not it's not a group. It's not a group talk that you get. All right, and next is the next generation accountability.
It is, and I would like to start off that with the mid-year data from both schools. That was, I'm not sure whether that's at the end of your packet tonight or in your folder. It's this one. It's from the folder. Excellent.
Are you? Oh,
Yeah.
blue folder?
Yeah,
there is
so it
some.
looks like this, but it's 2 pages back to back.
Oh, it was in the middle of folder too.
Okay, all right. So this is the mid-year data. You would receive the goals at the beginning of the year. I think the principals are not ecstatic doing cartwheels over the data that we have here. But
It's in Shelley's folder. We're optimistic.
This is
I think it's also been stapled in. Right?
It's just the last few pages.
And it's in the big packet.
But it was in the middle of, there was a.
Yeah, mine was also in the middle
in the
folder, but
I think Al's was regular.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
we're all right. Which one do you have first?
I have BES facing me.
All right.
School is first.
Sorry, Al. You're going on 14 hours in this building now, huh?
I told my kids I was gonna see them Friday, so I'm right there.
It works.
Don't get it taken at home.
Yeah, so one of the things that Mark and I and the staff did at the beginning of the year was sit down and talk about the fact that we didn't really have any data from the previous year other than our Smarter Balance assessment scores. The STAR data, once the year ends, and if you haven't downloaded it and printed it off, it's no more. So unfortunately, we couldn't go back and look at what would be, a reasonable SGP, which is a student growth percentile, where they look at how all students at a certain rate in the fall and how they grow against their age group in the winter, and you can only get that SGP from when they've had at least 2 tests. Most, STAR in most states will say between 35 and 60 is a good SGP. You'll hear more about that from Al, because I know they based theirs on SGP because they knew, where they would fall. So Mark and I decided to go a little bit differently. We did, and in a few minutes we'll talk about pre-kindergarten, and you'll know what what the literacy standards, the pre-K standards, and the Connecticut early learning and development standards are. So for pre-kindergarten, we decided to look at kindergarten eligible kids. So we're talking about the 4-year-olds who will be going to kindergarten. And we wanted them, there are roughly 10 literacy standards that are district created. So again, we'll talk about later on one of the thoughts of moving to the state created benchmarks, because there's a lot of material that goes with that to support it. But we did decide for the kindergarten, 80% would have 7 of the 10 literacy standards, and they would master, which is getting a 3 or a 4 in the range. And then that all pre-kindergarten students would advance a minimum of a level. So we're talking about going from like an emerging to a master to an emerging in another level, those kinds of things. Right now, according to the mid-year data, we have 75% of our kids are on the pathway. So I looked at all kids who had 3 or more, or 4 or more of the 10, and thought, okay, so that amount of kids. We had another group of students who have 2s and 3s and could go to 7, but 75, I cut it off at the 4, getting to the 7. You know, again, hopeful that one of the things that the pre-kindergarten teachers have done is we've started to review some of the scheduling. You know, is it impacted by having, and I'll talk more about this later, is it impacted by having some kids coming Monday, Wednesday, Friday, some kids coming Tuesday, Thursday, some kids coming 5 days a week? So we want to see if we've done some research into that, just looking at last year's or this year's kindergarten and
breaking them down so that, you know, if the kids are there 5 days,
right,
that makes up 80% of the 75.
And what instruction are they missing?
Like, you're only evaluating the
The K eligible.
So shouldn't those students all be coming 5 days?
We have 12 4-year-olds who do not come 5 days a week, and that is based on parent preference. But, you know, out of 56 4-year-olds, but 12 out of 56,
But it's 12 kids who want
it
to
really
be
affects it is a higher percentage. So that's something there's a lot of pre-K information in that manila folder.
But there's a lot even probably that you could take that so much further and look at the effect that 2 days versus 3 days versus 5 days as a 3-year-old.
Right.
Historically, well, once you continue
And
to
what would be
accumulate
the difference?
Yeah, and you know, and that supports good support.
And we are starting to track that data. So I've got Cindy digging back into some things. Kindergarten, we did 75% of students will score a level 4 or higher on the DRA, which is a direct reading assessment. And those who score below a level 4 will improve by at least 1 reading level from fall to spring. The levels start at A, they go A1, 2, 3, 4. So if a student starts at an A, they can, you know, move to a 1, and that other 25% is covered. Right now, based on the data, the DRA data that was taken in the winter, we've only got 60%. So one of the things that we did was the reading specialists and the kindergarten teachers created a new intervention schedule. So they're taking a number of those students who are just on, the 2 reading teachers have taken the students who are on the cusp, like they could be right there. You know, those level 2, level 3 kids who they think they can get to a 4, and provided them additional intervention. And you know, that's very important, having those 2 staff members who can pull groups of kids and really work with them. The DRA measures comprehension, it measures fluency and miscues, so teachers know if a student reads a word differently, you know, than it is, it's considered a miscue, or if they have to and whether or not they look for cues, like picture cues sometimes. So if a student sees a picture of a rabbit and they say, well, the bunny, but the word is rabbit, well, that's a miscue. They haven't, even though they understood the context, they didn't read the word. So we are working hard to provide those interventions now, so that hopefully that will boost it up. The other thing to note is that the state, just a few years ago, the state wanted kindergartners reading at a level 2 DRA, and now they want students reading at a level 4, which is a big jump for a 5-year-old. So it's so important to know that the standards, the expectation for kindergarten the rigor is much greater than it was before.
Is that because more full day K is
Much
is
more
the
common
result
of what you would
want
want
kids
no,
to do.
most towns went to full day K because of the rigor, because of these standards. Yeah, no.
But yet state law says you don't have to enroll your kids till they're 7.
Seven.
Right.
Exactly.
Go figure.
The standards change, but did the kids?
Well, don't get me started on that, man, because 5-year-olds
They're
haven't
still
changed.
5-year-olds.
And then for grades 1 through 4, what we did is instead of going with the SGP, which now I kind of wish I did because we're doing well with the SGP, we went with STAR. Allows you to look at data based on district standards. So we could set a goal. It could be a district goal. It could be the state goals for like the common, attached to the Common Core of the state. Or it also allows you to look at goals according to Smarter Balance assessments. And since the Smarter Balance assessment is the district report card in terms of standardized testing, we decided to choose what STAR recommended for the scaled score to be in line with Smarter Balance. And even though Smarter Balance is not taken in 1 and 2, we looked at, we still would want, they have those numbers available.
Just for baseline.
Well, they're saying if a student in 1st grade has a 166 scaled score, it leads that in 3rd and 4th grade, they would be meeting the goal for the Smarter Balance. So if you notice there, we do have only, our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th are close to 70. So we feel pretty confident because some of the stuff hasn't even been taught yet. Like some of the things they're doing, it just hasn't come up in the curriculum. So those grades are fairly confident that they can hit 70. Our concern with grade 1 is that we think what we're going to do, and it says that at the bottom, next year, if we use scaled score as our goal, we would move back to using the DRA on grade 1 as well. And the reason being is that STAR has 2 different tests that you can take. One is STAR Early Literacy, and one is STAR Reading for the 1st grade level. You cannot take the 1st grade STAR unless you can get through the early literacy. So you have to take early literacy and pass it before we'd even let you go to grade 1. The kick there in the whole system is that the scoring system they don't convert to the same numbers. So for an instance, in early literacy, you might score a 685. And a 685 might be considered transitional or probable, which is where you'd want kids to be. But when you convert that, so the early literacy might be, 650 to 700 is a certain, that equates to a STAR Reading goal of a 320 to a 327. And you're like, so they don't convert equally. So you'll see scores in kindergarten on the STAR of 700, 800, and then first grade, look at what the goal is, 166. So a probable reader in kindergarten is scoring in the 800s. Somebody on target to meet the Smarter Balanced assessment is scoring a 166, and that's on the grade 1 reading assessment. So quite honestly, looking back on that, I feel like we, would have been better off also going with the DRA, because the DRA goal for first grade is an 18. It's much more clearly, because you're taking the same assessment. And then again, on the similar things on numeracy, pre-kindergarten, we are a little concerned, and that I'll get into in a little bit about the rigor that we would like to bring to that program. Our kindergartners are right now, there's 87% of them are on target to meet the 80% score on the final math assessment. So we were like, whoa, that's like, where did that come from? And then going into the 1st through 4th, again, they are a little concerned that each teacher, when we met, Mark and I met in mid-years, we did it individually, and then some we did as teams. And their biggest concern really was that they're being assessed on things that had not come up in the curriculum yet. So they're hoping that by the end in the math that they have had. And I know our 3rd grade teachers in particular were feeling, all year, and it will be interesting to me to start tracking the cohort, to be able to say, so I didn't have any data from 2nd grade to see how the 3rd grade would do. To track the cohort, because I know they complained a little bit about what we came back, say, from the winter break in December. We came back in January, and I remember being at a team meeting, I don't know if you remember, and they were like, they forgot how to add and subtract. Like I had to do a whole, like they were just completely, the teachers were just flustered that they had to go back to basic subtraction. And but they're also fairly confident that it's about where we haven't taught those things.
My experience with STAR as a teacher in the winter assessment for math, there typically is a little panic because you haven't taught a lot of the concepts that are on STAR, and it catches up towards the end of the year. So our message to teachers is we're gonna keep that goal of 70%. We're gonna, and we know that through your teaching that these numbers are going to improve. So they may seem low now, but don't panic.
Yeah, and we did tell them that while some of them, they had individual goals, their own evaluative goals might have been a little lower than 70%. But when Mark and I met with Mary, we just felt like even with this data, we said, well, we're going to go big or go home. Because to say that less than 70% of your kids are going to meet the goal is just not okay. It's not, personally and professionally.
Great to see 99.9.
Yeah. And I will tell you, I have had that experience where I had teachers tell me, no, we have to change it. We have to change it. We're not going to make it. And they swore to me. The goal was 80. A 1st grade group. Goal was 80% on a big, and by the end of the year, we had 94% met the goal. And I said, see, you doubted yourselves. But we feel fairly confident that they will come through. And we certainly do plan to continue to track the data because that's important as well. And having that cohort information will inform how we set the goal for the grade next year.
As a parent wondering this, is this something that will be related to parents, like say in conferences in the spring, will this be discussed like your child falls on the
Yeah, the teacher, during conferences, they should give the data for all those scores. Normally, they will not only go over the report card, but they would talk about where they fell in terms of their reading and math for 1st to 4th STAR, for kindergarten with the DRA. They'll also talk about other benchmark assessments that they do. So you know, that should happen.
Especially now that it's kind of been looked at as a whole school. Right. I'm sure there's gonna be questions about where your kids
And then we also will be putting this, once we have the data, probably in a newsletter as well, we'll report out how we did on maybe the fall newsletter, but just saying how we did in terms of meeting our goals, which, you know, and how we're going to reflect on them and what changes we're going to, some changes we already made to address certain areas and other things we see as we're going along, we realize, oh, note to self, next year we'll do it this way.
And how often will you present to the board this information?
Well, we do the benchmark 3 times, you know, the benchmarks are done 3 times a year. When we do it for our evaluative purposes, we do it, the first one we have is simply like basic baseline information, and then the mid-year, and then I would think at the end of the year, after the summer.
It
It'd
all
be
3
interesting.
times. You should see the baseline, you should see the
Yeah.
middle, you should see the end.
Yeah, this is, you know, exactly what the board needs in terms
The
of
board should see
measuring
that.
student achievement.
Yeah, that's,
So,
yeah,
Right,
good
So-
knowledge, should see that.
thank you.
all right, Al, sorry. Are we going over the preschool stuff, or is this just for us to
That's
read?
on the agenda.
No, we're gonna go
That's on
after,
the agenda.
right near the bottom.
Sorry, I have paper everywhere
So
right now.
I did mine early. And
They
that's what
all
I
have
put
it.
the quote for. I don't
Thank
get
you
down.
again.
I,
We started updating it today.
you did.
Changing it.
You have the third, you have the third column?
It's the same.
Okay, as long as you have the third column.
We did.
I know if you did.
Okay. It was in your packet tonight.
This one? Okay.
Okay, so for us, you have the reading and the math levels. The SGP is the student growth percentile. Student growth percentile is they take like scorers, so kids who scored the same range, and they measure their growth against. So it's the same kind of performer measured against each other all year, how they grow. And STAR recommends that as their standard for how to measure. We link it to the SBAC scores also. So there should be a correlation between how they do on this and how they do on SBAC. So for reading, we set our goal at 66% of students would be 35 or better. We thought we would do better than that, but we wanted to make something that was an attainable goal. And at the present time, you can see 5th, 6th, and 7th are plus, and so they're on track to meet that goal, actually to meet that target, and probably exceed the target. 8th grade is just short of the target, but they're on track to meet the target also. And I assume when you take a look at the SBAC scores and how we go all along in the language arts area, I don't think that would be an issue. Math, if you look at this, 5th grade, 55%, so we're 11% short at this point. We do think we're going to continue to grow. Again, this is a snapshot, but we'll see what we think will be growth. 6th grade is well ahead of, well on track. 7th grade is on track, and then the 8th grade is below. We also think we'll see gains there. So it's one of these things that as they go along, it has been shared with students. I sat down personally with a number of 8th graders to go through their STAR scores. My feeling is the 8th grade can do much better than what they've been doing. Look at some of the scores. They're up here. And then so there's a little bit of a bouncing going on with some of the 8th graders. And there's a discussion about that with them. And the notion of taking each time they do it, giving it their best effort. So,
Why do you think that is? Why is that? Is it just?
Well, it's impossible for them to lose math knowledge. Like I said,
Right.
they can't not. So their kids will score, say, a scale score of 900, and then have a scale because you can track how long they take it. Some of them they spend 27 minutes taking it, and somebody might be done in 12 minutes. Or someone might not feel well that day. So it is that snapshot when they do it. So the STAR is pretty important because Alice used STAR as the entry criteria. So fortunately, our 8th graders were really well prepared. So every single one of our kids get into Alice at apply. they all took that STAR exam, and they scored well on it. So there is a piece of our kids that it meant something for real to them. They took it seriously.
So they knew that that grade was gonna count.
Well, they had to go to
Oh, they had to go to
Ellis,
Ellis.
and they had to take it. They had to take the STAR assessment. So
Oh, I know, we talked about that, but yeah, that's interesting that they knew it actually meant something and not just a
So-
thought on their paper.
So do you have a thought as far as why the sixth grade is so exponentially,
I was gonna ask,
better in their testing than
Oh.
everybody else?
were they high last year as a fifth grade?
Sixth grade has been doing better. I think there are a couple of things. One of them is I think there are a number of factors as well as, Diane, and remember, they go to the math council, they had smart boards in their room, they use the technology in a certain way, but that technology is not available in some different classes at this point. I think, sometimes it's different motivational levels, so it's hard to say. We're trying to get at the curriculum that's not finished yet. So part of it might be fidelity to the curriculum. So there are a number of factors there that we hope to see turn around. Another piece, say it, is we really need math at this point. I think that's a big chunk that's missing. And I think elementary school needs more, but they have a math intervention. So you just want to look just in the community, we don't have that. And that's difficult to overcome some of these chunks.
And now, when you met with Dr. Hurden at the academy, was this relative to information shared with him about our kids going into Woodstock in terms of math?
That's not the information I got from him. The information I got from him that they were making changes across the board because everybody was coming together. They were changing over their curriculum to meet the greater rigor they needed to have certain things.
I know at one point in time there was the issue with at Killingly you did algebra 1, right? Geometry, algebra 2, but at the academy it was algebra 1, 2 geometry.
Right, and that's what
I don't
they
know
do.
if that's aligned.
That's what they're doing in Woodstock now,
Right.
so I'll do one too. Then they're big change to their program.
But our job is just to get everybody.
Hopefully the majority of our kids who are taking algebra are able to move on to the next level. But we've raised the level, so we have more kids taking algebra as a percentage of the class than we have as a field. So the idea of challenge, giving a little more rigor, I think it's a little more challenge. There's a readiness factor, and so we have to look at that with whether the kids that we have taking it, whether they're really ready for it. So a lot of it's not to do with how intelligent they are, but just how maturity they are. I think many of you have experienced that yourselves in some along the line, whether you're mature enough to love the math that you love. Some of you maybe not. If you're able to do math, it's much easier.
So within STAR, can you drill down the data points?
When you say the data points,
Meaning the areas that you're trying to measure, the
So,
skills that you're measuring.
so the way STAR works is they'll give a report about the different skill areas that are missing, but it's not exactly tied one-to-one to the student. So if a student scores, let's say they score a 975, it's a typical student who scores 975 has these gaps. Doesn't mean that particular student has it, but it gives you a general idea these would be the gaps that they have. It's really up to the teacher who's working with those kids to be assessing, is this an accurate measure of what the kid is and where they're at.
So they're not doing this online at a computer picking A, B, C, or D.
Well, they can. The kids do that, and so and blow up the test. Just like they could blow up the SBAC. So, and Joan, you would ask about a little bit of, this is our SBAC. The history of the SBAC, just to kind of show that dark is strong in math. I'm about to have 1.5 dimensions. No interest. So this is 2 years of SBAC data. And the paradigm has changed with SBAC. It is a more challenging more rigorous math than it was, and also where things are taking place in math has changed. So the first page shows you the first year of our SBAC scores. You see literacy is on the left and math is on the right, and we're well ahead in literacy. That also has to do with, we've been working on the language arts curriculum. We've been putting more effort into the language arts aspect than we have been into math. The second one shows, yes, we grew in math, but the language arts is still strong.
Last year, this year's sixth grade, that's got 82. Last year's fifth grade, we had 71.
Yes, so
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong spot. Last year was 62, they went to 76. Right now, they're 72. 67, 26, 46, 35. So they're getting rid of us. No. How does 46 to 35 compare? Oh, this year.
it's hard to do a cohort that's not necessarily the same kids as cheerleaders. So it's difficult to do. It's difficult to do a cohort because the numbers change and who the kids are change. So
The kids change, they're all different kids.
So some of the things that we do, and most of you are aware, we do have intervention blocks every other day. So students who are struggling, we've been putting a lot of effort into the math. There's a bit of worry that we might be losing something in the language arts, again, because we don't have an interventionist. We use classroom teachers, do small groups, and the kids that aren't in an intervention group typically off with either an arts teacher or they're with is a logic group with one of the core teachers as they focus on the smaller groups trying to do interventions with them. We built we have a pretty good website that started with the math help for families, so that families who want to know these what I do. So there are a number of really good links on there from IXL, which is a program we bought so kids can individually get online at home or here in the building. That also provides kids to go at a pace in there. And I encourage all of you to get on and have your kids get on. The kids tend to like it. Diane Wimmer won a grant award, and we have something called Reflex Math. So that's the thing. It's only 35 lessons. And so that's a program that she's rolled out to the rest of 5th and some 6th grade. Is that correct?
Is that new this year?
Say that again.
Is that new this year?
That's new this year.
That's great, thank you. Congratulations.
So we also have Mobi online there. So if you look at our math site, there's a pretty good site. We're hosting a math family night on Tuesday. We're really looking forward to that. There's a lot of really good things we think that we can introduce to families. We think that's going to be a big link. You frequently will hear, I don't think you very often hear parents say, "Oh, I can't read," but you'll frequently hear adults say, "Oh, you can't do math." We would really like to change that. And part of what we want to do is show the resources. Khan Academy, if you haven't heard of Khan Academy, Khan Academy is a good place to get online. If you don't know how our textbook for 6, 7, and 8 have a really good online resource. Dr. Berg and who's the other doctor? You don't have not Dr. So they do a really good job of explaining the math concepts, how to do it, and it's drawn up so you can both visually see it, hear it explained. So there are a number of resources that we haven't had before that we really focus on trying to do to see if we can boost what we're doing. So that's my report. So thank you.
So that's a perfect segue into looking at next generation, which does include the SBAC scores, the CMT science scores, and others. So in your packet this evening, you have a paper clip with the Q&A, followed by this year's scores. I did in color for you. You do have them in your packet as well, but I did them in color for you. And you have them in both last year and this year. so that you have both of those items. So I did, so that you have the full reports, I also gave you a little cheat sheet here. Al, would you? Sorry. Each one of you take, and then the rest can go to the audience if you want. So in looking at the paper that I just handed out, so now you see, we were told 3 years ago when we first heard about the next generation that the first data we would receive would be in 3 years, which is next year, not this year. However, the state has shared last year's baseline data, which they don't have all of, as you'll see, and they have shared this year's data. And next year, usually it takes 3 years of an assessment to really see the growth in the assessment, to see how your children are growing. So I have put together last year's and this year so that you can see some of that growth for the district, the middle school, and the elementary school. In terms of what is being looked at for our district, K-8, we're looking at English language arts and performance, and then high needs performance. High needs means any student who is a member of any of these three groups. English language learners, free and reduced meals, or students with disabilities. So any student that falls into that category would fall into this one grouping. And they used to report out individually in each of those areas. So when you look at 2014-15 with 2015-16 for the school district, in English language arts and the high needs students in math, both all students in high needs, science, all students in high needs, in all of those areas, there was an increase in the score. Now, I don't know how much you remember about the score, but about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even 6, the state changed everything and based it on 100. And so let's say a child who scored a 5 on the mastery test would get a 1. A child that scored a 4 would get a 0.8. And that scored a 3, or probably 0.75, 0.5, 0.25, and then 0 if you scored in the bottom rung. And all of those scores came together to give you a score anywhere between 0 and 100. And so that's why these scores are based on 100 at this point. I'll show you something on the other. The interesting thing is, so grade 7, indicator 7 is on track for graduation. So, pardon, well, that's the Woodstock thing. That's the Woodstock thing, yes, that's absolutely the Woodstock thing. So, which I'll explain in a second. What that is our grade 9 students, did they pass 5 classes, so get 5 credits, and did they fail no more than one of the core area classes, science, math, English, social studies, so that's all, they can fail one. So in a block schedule, a semesterized block schedule, a student might take 8 credits, 8 courses over the course of a year. They've got to get credit for at least 5 of those, and the 3 that they failed, not more than 1 can be one of those core areas, and that means they're on track for graduation by the state standards. So, so you can see in 14-15, 85% of our students. Now, we're going to be digging deeper to our high schools to see what that means, and we are looking for names. We want to know names, scores. We want to know where they were, how successful they were in Algebra 1 after coming here and taking 3 Algebra, 4 Algebra 1 year. So we have a lot of questions. I'm sure your new superintendent's going to have exact same questions. So when you look, however, on track for graduation this year, it's 39.2%. So I would imagine most of those students are at Killingley or NFA. Or, Woodstock Academy did put some data point in the wrong column. And so they got a graduation rate of 3.5% on their report. And the state is not changing it.
They don't.
They are not changing it.
The state won't.
They will not change it. They're not going back.
It's like a
Forward.
mash.
Yeah.
Well, you can have great growth next year.
Well, that I have incredible
Well,
we assume.
We had Commissioner Wetzel at the catering.
I
I
asked-
asked you about it, and Joan was all ready, and she's like, nope, it's all in, whatever. And Joan's like, well, what about who's checking this to make sure that the data's in the right place? She's like, oh, well, everything's all.
Well,
So,
no,
but they
Commissioner
figured it.
Wenzel said was that, I said, who scrubs the data? Can you explain how the data scrub happens? And her answer was that there's a 30-day period where data is returned, piece of that, for the district to review and to comment, and there was no comment. Then there was
That's
no
correct.
And she
opportunity.
thinks that
That is
everybody
correct.
had little pieces
Yeah.
of the pie, but nobody had the big pie, so it wasn't.
And yeah,
Nobody
Woodstock
saw what
admits they made a
The
mistake.
data
between
comes from
data.
all sources.
Right.
So there's attendance data that comes from our PSIS data. There's all these sources, so it's not one database we're uploading that we can look at and say, oops, we made a mistake as well. So we do expect that, that to change.
But she didn't
Next
say that
year
they were
we're
just
just
seeing
seeing
tremendous growth. But she had said that they were going to be trying to put some more stopgates in effect of trying to make sure that things were looking appropriate and not.
Because the question was, could you just, for what you do, submit on your own without, just the electronic interface piece, the data that is uploaded from the district? What if you sat and did 100%, 100%, 100%, 100%? Is that going to be flagged or jump out as? You could do that. She said people do try to do it.
Another thing, and I provided you with the middle school and elementary school data that certainly we can discuss, but I'm trying to have the board be well aware of this type of report, because you will be receiving this report next year. If you would look at the 14-15 report, you will see that the indicators we have are 1A through F, and then we jump to 4, to chronic absenteeism. So we do not have 2A through F. And 2A through F is all about growth, or I thought it might be A through D. Is all about growth. It's A through D. And so because this 14-15 was the first year, there was no growth. And so they were not reported out. And so when you flip over to 15-16, you can see there are an additional 4 indicators to A, B, C, D that are there. So the other thing that I want to point out is the 4th column, the 3rd column from the right, and it can be on either page. The 3rd column from the right, and the current data, 15-16, the maximum number of points you can earn is 50. And so that 100 that they were scoring things on, and they did score on in the 2014-15 year, has now changed to a maximum of 50. So they've just cut the formula in half, which is fine. But if you notice on 2A, B, C, D, and E, the maximum points are 100. And so they truly want every single child to grow. And so you will be penalized significantly, the district will, in our public report card, if all the children are not growing. And so, so that is why that is at 100. So I've already indicated things that we're not talking about college and career readiness. We have no scores on that. No scores on 4-year or 6-year graduation rate, post-secondary entrance, and arts access. That's a high school one as well, accessibility to the arts. So the 2 that I would like to highlight, unfortunately, are our physical education scores. Well, and the graduation, but the physical education, if you look at both the schools and the district, they're nothing to crow about at all. And I know that both principals have been working with their physical education teachers this year to set goals to increase those. So I'm hoping that 16-17 is going to show a marked increase. But they give the students the test themselves. Remember, it's pull-ups and sit-ups and the dash and yes.
Is that the standard?
That's standard across the state.
But it's only 3rd, 4th, grade in the elementary school.
It should be only 4. It's 4, 6, and 8. Oh, they do a trial in
Because
third.
they do it in third, they do it in third grade.
Yeah, I think he said that.
Yeah, they just do it in third and
Practice all I want.
because they get the awards if they reach presidents or national, they get the awards in third grade, so.
But physical fitness is given in 4, 6, 8, and 10 in the state and reported out. So, that's not very good at all, our physical fitness. And one would think that that's something we can work on. John and I are working on the health and wellness policy right now. And so if we're asking kids to be, not sedentary for more than 2 hours at a time.
Right. Get up and stretch.
Get up, stretch, do your brain gym, do whatever you have to do, but they should not be sitting for 5 or 6 hours a day. So they need to be moving. And that helps everything. That helps your brain.
I know, right? Well, they feel like,
Yeah, like, you're doing it all night. 1 time, 2 hours. So, that is.
So is that something that we're hoping to incorporate in the curriculum in the schools as an actual thing that?
Yes, as part of, well, they have physical activity, we have a policy on physical activity you'll see at the next board meeting, and then the wellness policy. So both of those things are about active students, and we need to change our philosophy.
Yeah, because Dr. Conway and I had this great conversation because when Dr. Conway was in Plainfield, I remember seeing it in the news, hearing about it from Generations. They had the walking program.
One of my third graders takes a walk every day.
All assemble and do the one
Every
mile
day.
around
He's
the
got
building
3
with a nice campus like ours.
keychains from all of the walks. When they do so many laps around the school, they get a keychain, and it makes a huge difference.
And they go out even when it's
They go out
down,
every day.
and I'm like, what are you doing? And they go out with a prompt.
And they're
That
out.
was what I liked to
Yes.
say. You gave them something to talk about and think about as they were doing the walk.
They go out every single day.
It's great.
And there are a couple of classes in the third grade that do it.
That have started.
And the students will let you know. Like they will say, like, when are we going for our walk? They look forward to it.
Murphy loves it, and
We
he
did
tells
invite
me that
Brooklyn to join us back in the.
he
so-
feels ready to learn after his walk.
We did invite Brooklyn.
Yeah, I do. Linda Colangelo.
Yeah, she's still there. She's still at NDDH. Are there any questions at this point on that? There's a lot of data there. I tried to distill it, show you a little bit of growth. I think it's good that there's growth, but I'm more interested in where the students are growing overall. So next year's data will be more interesting.
Can we absorb it and maybe ask questions?
Oh, absolutely, please. I would like to point out a few things, however, in the district profile and performance report, which is the black and white version in your packet. In the regular packet that you received online, or in tonight's packet, yes. There it is. All right, so just, I assume you've received this every year, this SSP it was called, this teacher school profile. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
We didn't get this last year.
it presents lots of information, and usually it's 1 and possibly 2 years behind. So even though it says 15, 16, there is data here that is 13, 14, and some data that's 14, 15, but it does tell you what that data is. There's some data they just can't get. So this comes out every year. It's available online. I can give you a color one if you want. But this is comparable data, and I'm not going to go through these numbers, but you can see absenteeism, suspension, expulsion, race and ethnicity, full-time staff, and if you want to know your comparison to another district, you pull their SSP and say, oh, look at that, where we are. On page 3, I wanted to share some data with you about special education, and Mrs. Brown is here to be able to answer any questions that you would like. So on the top left of that page, students with disabilities by primary disability. I think it's very It's wonderful to note that in all cases, we are below the state rate of identification. And to be at 11.2 when the state rate is 13.4, I would be very happy with 12. So we have to be under the state rate. So at 11.2, that is very laudable. That means that even though our RTA process is not well developed, we are making sure that we try to provide kids with interventions in class prior to identifying them as special ed. So, so that rate is good. We can certainly get it lower, and we should with a good RTI process, response to intervention process. We should be able to get that rate lower by identifying fewer kids and providing them strategies that they need. The one that's really interesting is in the top right, students placed outside the district. You can see the state rate and the district rate. There is quite an anomaly there. So we are going to investigate that data. It is our hypothesis that because our special ed kids in high school are outside of Brooklyn, that they may be included in those numbers.
But it wouldn't make it 4 times higher.
Well, it could. Oh, absolutely. Because all students who just have a learning disability and are in a normal classroom and maybe you have a resource room or some support or.
Would it include 504?
No, no 504s, only IDEA kids. So that's what we think, because our rate, we've been complaining about our outplacement rate, but it's not there. There's no way. This is not it. And last year it was much lower than it is this year. So that's our next investigation, is to figure out where these are. Again, they just are input. And if we're having this problem, so is Pomfret, Eastern, Union, Canterbury. So we'll all be having the same issue. And we're meeting sending superintendents next Thursday. So and talking about special ed. So this will be one of the things we bring up. I want to see everybody's data. The overall expenditures, just for your information, a lot of towns use this data. It's comparable data to other districts, so you can tell what you're spending on a child. And remember, it's a year old. It's 14-15, so it's not last year. It's the year before. So, but I was just pointing out what the data that is included in here. And then the next two are the accountability. So we just went through that accountability as well. They're now putting NAEP in here as well, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which is the national exam. You never know when you're going to take it. They send you a letter and say, oh, your 8th graders are going to take NAEP this year. I said, okay. They do.
So they don't take it every year?
It's random?
Yep.
5th graders have been
Fifth graders
are doing the
they're
pilot
doing,
for the
they're doing
science.
pilot, yeah,
Science.
for the new science CMT. So I wanted to provide you that. Amanda is here. I didn't know if there was any question for her in terms of the special ed as well.
Can you explain that 24% number? You were shocked.
I really think it's what Mary said, because the 19 accounts for our current health.
A total of that.
Yeah, so there's no other information. Does it total 30 in Woodstock County?
It's gotta be more than that.
Or
It might not be, it might be right around there.
Right around
I'm not
there.
sure, I don't have any. So, I actually don't think.
The only other 2 pages I would point out, I just printed 2 pages out from the 34-page document, or the last 2 pages. So my numbered page 12 and my numbered page 13 that shows Brooklyn Elementary School in a category 1 on the first page, and on my page 13, Brooklyn Middle School in a category 2. All schools in the state are designated categories 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Categories 4 and 5 are school districts or schools that get special assistance from the state.
The Alliance and
All of the Alliance and Turnaround are in there, and focus schools as well. But there may be others that have just been identified as well in there.
What is a 1 or a 2?
The 1 is the highest level. Usually out of the 1s, there are also schools of distinction, which can be received for, we are not a school of distinction at this point, but I heard from Ms. Michaud that he will be, so I said, okay, it sounds good.
I said, I want to know why. I got one for so we'll figure it out.
So category 1 and category 2, I'm guessing the 2 is because of our math scores. But category 1 and category 2 is good. Category 2 is good. Category 1 is very good. But so we certainly are, we're in the neighborhood that we want to be, but it is not, you know, we would like them both to be category 1 and schools of distinction. And from what I've seen, we have the potential to do that. No problems. Focused curriculum, good teaching instruction, good teaching strategies, good assessment, and using the assessment. It's simple formula.
They don't rank them, they're just
That's correct.
alphabetical.
That is correct. Are there any other questions on that? Because I would like to let Mr. Yanku and Mrs. Brown.
You guys don't want to go home, do you?
Another question that sort of goes back to Al's presentation about the progression in math scores in the school. You mentioned that you often can find parents who express reservations about their abilities in math, or perhaps their abilities to help their own children. And I'm sure that's the case. I think we've all encountered that. But I think you can also find teachers who express reservations about their abilities. I have some concern that our approach to improving, one of our approaches to improving performance is going to be to put a math interventionist in the school. Undoubtedly, that would be helpful. It seems to me it would be more helpful if we also gave some special attention to the math, to the teachers in those grades to improve their self-confidence and perhaps ability to better teach their students math. I'm not suggesting this as a one or the other approach, but perhaps there's more than one way to skin this cat. And, having bumped into quite a few teachers over the years, it's a pretty strongly expressed opinion. I find that teachers express reservations about their ability to teach math. Just as the general public has some fear of dealing with math issues. So anyway, I guess that's not a question that's made more statement, but I appreciate it if you give it some thought.
Just as a quick, so we do have multiple tracks, you know, to try and address this. And so what I was talking about is a track that we have not addressed. Our parents by survey have said to us, one of the things they want is, how can I help my child at home? So this is a direct result. I'm glad you brought it up for me to expand on that. So we're specifically targeting that because, and if I sound like I was saying just parents, I think all adults. I thought I said everybody here has heard, you know, those kind of things. But yes, we're also working hard at the curriculum because that's a big piece, and the curriculum still is a work in progress. But we're working really hard at that, and we do work at trying to improve our own practice, including one of the things that we've done at team meetings is we want different content areas to bring math concepts into the classroom. It can be done in social studies. It can be done in science. Science does it really well because it's a natural connection. We're trying to do it across the board. So I think it's a really good thing.
Well, I just expand very briefly on that. I have heard in some other schools opinions expressed. Once an interventionist is placed, then the problems off the hands of the teachers in the classroom, just give it to the interventionist and straighten out.
We haven't done that with language arts, we wouldn't do it.
Okay, thanks.
Mrs. Brown, Mr. Yank, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry,
dismissed.
Mr. Shaw.
They want to stay with me.
You
I
can
said, I
stay.
know this. They can go.
We're happy to have everyone.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
All right, so next on the agenda is the pre-K
K program.
So just some of the things that I wanted to talk about in terms of pre-kindergarten and the things that have been put out by the state, the Office of Early Childhood, and thinking that we really want to move towards having those things in our pre-kindergarten program. We've talked about the rigor of kindergarten. Well, the rigor of kindergarten, unfortunately, puts a little bit more strain on pre-kindergarten because students need to be ready. One of the things that we're going to do for this year's conferences, we planned on the kindergarten teachers have gotten a packet together, which we will be sending home with pre-kindergarten students at conferences at the 4-year-olds, the K-eligible kids, showing them what the expectations for K are. So there's sample worksheets, sample assessments, talking about the different, how many fry words with your sight words they need to know, how many shapes, colors, those kinds of things. Looking at fluency and letter naming fluency. So you'll have a sheet of paper that just has letters, and it might be a capital Y, a lowercase b, a capital T, a lowercase u, and just that fluency piece. And because a lot of times we feel that, not every parent thinks that in pre-kindergarten that children are preparing to read and to do math. I mean, they're doing so many things now. One of the things that you have in your packet is just a list of our 3 kindergarten teachers and how many students are in each session on each day. And you can see right now we service 102 pre-kindergarten students. Some classes are a little higher than the others. So teacher 3, if you look at teacher 3 in the AM, you can see that some of her days are higher. The Thursday is a little bit lower because there are students whose IEP, they come 4 days a week versus coming the full time because they have other services on Thursdays. So one of the things that
I think it's in the Manila folder.
Oh yes, it's in the Manila one.
Yeah, Ms. Rao, you have
All my
your
little
Manila folder. Right, sorry about that.
So this just kind of shows you what the class sizes, and you can see they fluctuate. Some fluctuate by 1 or 2, but some fluctuate quite a bit. So 14 to 11, and that's where I was talking about how when you have students who are coming different days a week, and these may not even be the same students on those, it just makes it hard. One of the issues with having 2 and 3 day week programs is that if your class has art on Tuesday and music on Thursday, and you don't come on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you will not have art or music through the whole time. Now, that being said, in most early childhood programs or pre-kindergarten programs, they don't have unified arts as a separate entity. But we feel that I feel those are just as important for kids, and especially the music. It's all about music and movement. It's, the art deals with fine motor. There's so many things that are important. The PE, just getting in enough time. For the physical activity. So yes, May, going back to your question, is I would hope that all 4-year-olds would get in the 5-day programs first. We do, like I said, have 12 that don't come 5 days a week, but that's based on either that one or the 2 students that are twins that are, it's a case of other services on Thursday, but there are 10 kids out of 56 eligible students whose families have chosen for them not to come. We have another, unfortunately, there's another group of people who attendance is an issue. And while I send letters out each month and talk about how pre-kindergarten is not a mandated subject, but it's about building, attendance is important to build habits. We still have a number of students who, we may not have someone in a 5-day-a-week program who wants to be in one, but have someone in a 5-day-a-week program whose kid comes maybe 2 or 3 times a week, or when it's convenient. So that's a concern. The one thing that I would like to ask tonight is, one change I'd like to make is, rather than, we've gotten a number of calls, but we've been working on kind of figuring out what it is we wanted to do, but a number of calls about registration. What we would like to do is just change the wording to pre-kindergarten application. Because when you say registration and you bring in all your documents and your birth certificate and all that, it's assumed that you have a spot. And considering the current budget climate and the fact that we hope that the state would eliminate or force us to eliminate grade levels, but it's something that I would be cautious to say, to enroll all 100 kids and then, or however many students, and then find out that, we have to, to reduce by a grade level. And I know that, Brooklyn prides itself on the beautiful early childhood center that they've built and having universal preschool, pre-kindergarten, but I really think that just changing it to application says, it helps us to say we expect to have universal. But these are some of the challenges we're facing in this climate, or it would have to be a decision that this board makes to say, no, we are going to fund it no matter what. So that would be one thing. Things to think about for the future. We really have to keep that commitment to universal, because I will tell you that going forward, there are things that we have to think about, not necessarily tonight, but talking about the general trend right now in pre-kindergarten is to move to 6-hour classrooms. Federal Head Start has done that, moved to 6-hour classrooms. When the state offered the PDG, Preschool Development Grant, and the Smart Start Grant, I think 2 years ago, they offered grants to expand your pre-kindergarten programs, and those are 6-hour classrooms. And school readiness, while we don't believe they will, that's a state grant that we do get. We have 24 slots. We don't believe that they're going to change it this year, but they may reduce the funding per student that we receive. So we are reimbursed, I think, $4,500 per student, and there's been discussion with the budget of reducing that up to $1,000 per student, which would be a financial concern for us if they were. We have 24 slots, and I actually have to write that grant by April. But I've got it. It's ready to go.
That's next week.
Yeah, I know, but it's later in April. So just thinking about how the change may occur in early childhood and really focusing on where is it that we want to go and how we want to see that program, the pre-kindergarten program that you built, continue. In addition to that, it's one thing that I would like to say is that currently the school readiness students who qualify under the school readiness grant are in one classroom, have one teacher, and I feel very strongly that that needs to be spread out amongst the entire pre-K team.
Not they were spread out.
They are not.
The salary of one teacher.
It's not how we can't budget it that way. Basically, in order to budget it, if we were to get audited, it has to be based on the number of school readiness, the number of total students you have, and the number of, the only percentage you can charge to the staff in the room are the percentage of school readiness that you have. Currently, the teacher has all 24 slots, so we can bill her salary out. But if we split them, Sherry, this is something you'll have to know. If we split them into each of the classrooms, and there's a number, we'll have to just work out the budget, which I've done many times. There are benefits to that. The school readiness students, or the school readiness classroom, the staff have to have certain PD experiences that the other staff don't have to have. The school readiness the teaching, they have to develop learning experience plans, which are very detailed, lesson plans, not just a schedule of, okay, now we have blocks and, we're gonna play with blocks, we're gonna do this. It's really a detailed lesson plan based on the cycle of intentional teaching and the Connecticut Early Learning and Development Standards. So those are things that the requirements for that classroom really should be in every classroom so that we provide an equitable pre-K experience for all pre-K kids.
Is it when you say we have 24 kids?
24 slots.
24 slots, yeah. Is it a specific qualification for kids who qualify for it? Like,
Yes.
do they need to have, they need
65
something or?
60% have to fall within the 65% of the state median income. Or 75%. I always mess this up. 60% of the kids have to fall within below 75% of the state median income. I believe that's what it is. So there is a threshold, and it is a grant that is given to districts. When it first came out, it was only given to the 50 lowest wealth-ranked towns in the state, and I believe they've expanded that a little bit, but it's still for the competitive anyway. So we're a competitive school readiness town, whereas priority is different. Those are the bigger cities, and I think Putnam is a priority actually, which is different for out here. But so we do compete for these slots, but it does tend to be socioeconomically.
So that
here.
means in one classroom we have 24 socioeconomically challenged.
We have students that know each other.
Very well. And so for me, best practice is that that everyone is mixed.
It's just like building a regular classroom in any other grades. You want
Exactly.
some
You
bright
blend
kids,
them.
some,
You blend
yeah, some kids that are struggling. Yeah.
But also just the talk about having the pre-K class on the same regiment as far as the
Yeah,
class
that's
goes.
true.
And I just need to step back a little bit because I need to say this before I forget it. I am opposed to changing the language to say application because I feel like that opens the door for us to put that.
I'm opposed to it too.
Okay, that's my personal opinion,
But
but
then
I feel
I'd like
like.
to point out that the majority of school systems in Northeast Connecticut charge parents.
Yes, I understand that. And I
But I think
understand
that's a
that, but I
whole
think
nother-
that our district has made this a priority and we've seen this, we've talked about this, and at this point in time, I am not in favor of changing it to an application because I feel that opens up Pandora's box of we are considering, even remotely in the future, that it's an expendable thing. And I don't believe that that's something that I'm willing to put on the job.
Well, I'd like to suggest that you need to decide whether you want to provide positions for all students separate from whether you want to charge students. They're two different matters.
Well, we're not talking about charging.
And I don't think there's any problem with us opening up it for all our programs and looking at the conclusion and it's a priority. I think it's okay for us to turn over every leaf every
If we're
year
gonna be at the
and
point where we have to cut in preschool, that means we're cutting art teachers, we're cutting librarians,
Oh,
we're
yeah,
cutting
it's-
grade
it's-
level teachers, we're cutting $1 million in teacher salaries. So that is a wholly
And
different.
we still have the
board
ability, we still have the ability to say, no, our priority is our pre-K. We have that ability, but it doesn't mean it shouldn't be. I think everything needs to be.
I just me personally not comfortable with what tuition.
How does that relate to, how does the word application relate to?
I get what you're
It's more of
saying,
an
but you're
arbitrary-
registering something that means every kid just
It's an
gets to go.
expectation on our part of the parent.
The expectation is if you come to registration and you give all the information about your child, you will assume that you're guaranteed a slot.
I agree with that, that's why.
And so we were saying, what I was saying is if we change it to application,
Right.
then we could have some flexibility. If for some reason the budget, if we have to cut $1 million and we lose a teacher pre-K to 6 and health and library, all those things, we could then say, well, our priority would be our 4-year-olds. Our kindergarten eligible kids would get the first, they would definitely get registered because we want them to have a year before kindergarten.
4-year-olds.
And then it would be the 3-year-olds that might have to be looked at in terms of need, whether they are coming from birth or free, it's child find. It might be a situation where there's a lottery at some point, but even for the part day slots, but I think that by saying application, you're saying you're with a focus on 4-year-olds having the 5 days a week. You're just kind of giving yourself that flexibility should the budget, and this is something that you have built, I wasn't here, you have built a program and a whole facility based on, starting with pre-kindergarten, and you are commended for that. But I can tell you that you are one of the very few towns in the state that still offer free universal pre-kindergarten. Most either charge a fee or charge for transportation or only do special needs and peer models. So this is really a program that you should be proud of, but also having to look at the fiscal climate.
I don't think anybody voluntarily wants to cut anything or charge anything. Obviously, our hand will be forced if we're put in that position that we have to, cut anything. But I'm trying to, I'm hearing what you're saying about the registration application language. So that's one thing. What were the other to-dos? Is a plan for tonight that we are aware of these things? We're thinking about them. We're not making decisions tonight.
Well, the other thing I would like,
it's
permission to
starting
do is
now, right?
moving school readiness to all 3.
Writing it out.
That makes sense. I think that's an absolute necessity.
How about in terms of, is there any transportation issue or is there anything? No.
Not right now, no. I think we've worked those out.
September, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. And just so you realize, we are gonna be working to, and there is just a little thing here for, in your packets it's for administrators or school leaders. And it talks about how early childhood is not just pre-kindergarten. It's really pre-K to 3, which is what, except for 4th grade, it's what Brooklyn Elementary is. It is still under the state, under the Office of Early Childhood. Well, on this paper, early birth of 5 is simply what the ELDs are focused on, but really they have a whole thing in the ELDs, which is this chart, and it does go through 3rd grade. And talking about kids, it's usually like birth to age 8, somewhere in there, but we're still considered early childhood.
Preschool registration starts soon.
Well, we haven't picked the
Remember-
dates yet, but we have a draft.
Yeah, if I
Of the
remember,
dates.
I mean, it was like April,
Yeah.
May. There was like a month-long
Yeah.
time when I registered Molly for it. So, I mean, that's probably something we need to just.
I think it's 3 days, 10 to 2. Or 3 weeks, 10 to 2.
Yeah, yeah.
Always
there
in the
was a-
turnpike fire.
It is, but it's like,
Well,
it's
Cindy's
coming
been
up.
bothering me about getting it out there, so I just wanted to,
I'm sure people will start calling about registration.
oh, they've already been calling.
That's a lot to think about. Thank you for sharing all of that.
And then just so you can look at just some of the things that we're going forward in terms of changing the rigor. And I know everybody's been here way too long, but this is the Connecticut ELDs with the preschool assessment framework aligned. And this will tell you what each of the different expectations are for each age group and how it aligns to the framework and how we would like to, this is Brooklyn's self-created based on this document chart, and this is the state's assessment framework. So we really would like to move to the state framework because it does also give you, yours is white paper, but this is mine. Look, it's called a flip chart. Yours is in white paper, but this is what it really looks like. And this is how teachers should be assessing these skills. So it's not just looking at this as a checklist and saying, willing to participate in a variety of small, large group activities. Well, that's pretty subjective, and teachers would need clear calibration on that. Like, what does willing mean? Is it all the time, just like our new report card rubrics? Whereas if we move to the preschool assessment framework, it actually tells you, for personal social 1, it gives you a 2.5-year-old should do this at emerging. A 3-year-old would be mastered if they're doing this. A 3.5-year-old, a 4, 4.5. And what it does is it lets people know that there is one in here that people laugh at sometimes, but it's true that for an age group, you could, master the first benchmark on here if you kick, hit, and throw toys at kids. But that's if you're 2.5. That is what is, that is generally considered
what they do.
What they do. So, a 2.5-year-old would be emerging uses words to express emotion and feelings. If they laugh, smile, and clap. If they cry, frown, hit, or bite. They're using words to express emotion, and that's how it's defined. Now, a 5-year-old, it's not the same thing, but there are examples. So it's a lot more specific, and I think that is one area that because kindergarten's more rigorous and grade 1 is more rigorous, that I think we kind of have to really start honing in on making our pre-K program just as rigorous.
So do we have to make a motion to do a vote to spread out? Or that's just something you're okay.
But you're okay with that?
You want you to be very aware of it, and so you want feedback.
No, I think it makes total sense.
We talked very briefly last year about what the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds should be saying. Because there's a vast difference between a child entering in October as a 3-year-old and a child turning 5 in January. And their needs have to be different. It must be very difficult.
They're modeling though.
Yeah, no early childhood person that I know, and I've talked with many people at EastCon, at the state level, in my various regional councils that I'm on, early childhood educators believe that the best thing to do is to mix the groups, because you can have, not only do you have modeling, but you can have some students who are older, but are not socially or academically as advanced as some of the younger kids, and so they really do learn from one another. But that's why using this system is good as well, because you can look at your same class, you can teach the content, but the 3-year-old is going to be somewhere different than the 4-year-old, and that's how you differentiate how you're assessing them. But none of my friends, and I've brought this up to a number of people at EastCon, just in different groups that I'm on, and nobody agrees that going all 3s or all 4s is the way to go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Michelle. Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
Thanks for hanging out. All right. Is there any other business that we hadn't discussed that we forgot to bring up or wasn't put on the agenda?
I think not.
I think we pretty much covered it. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Hey, you skipped, you're not allowed to skip. Any public comment? Okay, now you make motion. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Kelly. Third. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you all.
But I did hand her your email today.
I appreciate the patience. Am I gonna get
Thanks.
Sorry.
Thanks.
It's not, I can. Thank you. I'll take all the.